My Marvel superhero girlfriend, welcome back, brave explorers of impossible worlds. We are excited to have you here to continue this odyssey together. Before we continue, everything you'll hear is pure fiction, so please don't try to replicate combat techniques at home. This wonderful story and all its rights belong to its brilliant original author. We are only the messengers of entertainment. Want another dose of adventure? Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a single chapter, and if you can't wait, our Patreon has exclusive surprises you'll love. Chapter 426, Scarlet Mode's Nian joins the battle, Part 1. In Westview, dusk fell, the fading light bathing the town in an intoxicating crimson. Night was drawing to a close. Pamela, seated in a chair in a motel, suddenly stood up. Her expression was dazed, but she suddenly recalled many things. It wasn't just poison ivy. In town, Harley Quinn, wrapped in a shirt and uniform, lay in a storage shed. The general store owner, contemplating a lollipop-based fortune, was also thinking about making a fortune. Many residents were awakening from their dreams, their forgotten memories and perceptions of reality flooding back. At the town's edge, a pickup truck was parked outside. A hungry king shark climbed out of the trunk, patting his deflated belly and gazing blankly ahead. The strange light curtain that had enveloped the town had faded. The western town of the 1940s and 1950s had returned to a modern town with dazzling street lights and billboards. The road sign that had once marked Westview had also vanished. A desolate vacant lot. Red-haired Nian reclaimed the chaotic crimson magic that enveloped the town, returning everything to its original state. Cognition modification, mind manipulation, magical realism, chaotic decomposition, these were the manifestations of Wanda's own chaos magic. This was the first time Nian had borrowed and used the abilities of Maid Wanda. Chaos magic was so powerful, its power so insane that even Wanda herself couldn't perfectly control it, easily losing control. But perhaps due to Nian's fifth permanent ability, emotion control, or perhaps Harley Quinn's schizophrenic psychopathy, Nian was able to perfectly control Scarlet Mode. Endless crimson slowly flowed like mist across the boy's eyes, hair, and skin, a violent yet calming effect. Master, this is for you. Wanda handed Nian a ring. It was a dark crown ring. Nian put his personal dimensional ring back on his finger and instantly sensed the location of the other members of the Fate, sending a message that he was fine. Wanda, this is for you. Nian used the dimension ring to retrieve another ring from the devouring dimension. It was a silver crown ring of the same design. Young master, I have a portal. I don't need a ring, and I can enter and exit the devouring dimension at any time, Wanda said. Take it. I wanted to give it to you, Nian said firmly. I should have given it to you long before this. Wanda took the ring in a daze. From now on, you will be the 8th member of the Destiny Alliance, Nian said gently. What's important isn't the dimension ring's function, but what it represents. Yes. Wanda blushed slightly, nodded earnestly, and gripped the ring firmly in her palm. At that moment, Nian and Wanda looked up together. 100 meters above the town, accompanied by a sharp, blasting sound, a hurricane-like tunnel burst forth from the night sky. Is that? Nian felt familiar. He had seen a similar scene 3 years ago, the sonic tunnel opened by the mother box of Apocalypse. Are the forces of Apocalypse attacking? Before Nian could even think, a towering figure burst forth from the sonic boom tunnel, clutching a cube-shaped silver-white box, plummeting diagonally toward the town's ground. The sonic boom tunnel lasted only a moment before vanishing, but 2 winged monsters still emerged. Emitting a powerful aura, the winged monsters descended upon the town as well. Boom. A deep crater was shattered in the town's open space, and the towering, cyborg figure struggled to his feet. His cybernetic left eye glowed faintly red, and aside from the right side of his face and his intact right eye, the rest of his body was entirely metal. It was none other than Cyborg Victor Stone, a member of the Justice League. But now, Cyborg looked incredibly battered, his mechanical body covered in wounds and nearly depleted of energy. One could only imagine the horrific battle he had endured. Am I back on Earth? Cyborg braced himself against the pitted ground with one hand, clutching a cube-shaped box in the other. As he connected to the local network, a glimmer of hope flickered in his right eye. This was the plan Batman had spoken of. While Superman distracted the Apocalyptian army, Cyborg and Batman broke into the Apocalypse base. With the help of Supergirl, they successfully seized the mother box from Apocalypse. Batman intended to use the mother box to return to Earth, just as he had resurrected Superman, using it to reshape Nian's body and resurrect the key the Flash had mentioned in the past. Unfortunately, the last two intruders were discovered, forcing Batman and Supergirl to remain behind to provide cover while Cyborg returned to Earth with a mother box. "Bruce, you must hold on." Cyborg, clutching the mother box, struggled to his feet. "Now, we need to find Nian Prince's body and try to resurrect him using the mother box technology." Trampling. Two terrifying figures landed beside Cyborg, creating two deeper and larger craters in the ground, shaking the entire road. Broad wings spread, ferocious fangs resored, its 3-meter tall, purplish-blue body cast a shadow. "Damn it!" Cyborg looked up in horror, raised his left hand, and unleashed a tactical missile. The missile directly impacted a demon-like monster a few meters away, exploding with a bang. A powerful blaze of flames completely enveloped the two demon-like creatures. Using the missile's blast wave to push him back, Cyborg activated his engines, using his remaining energy to take off, attempting to escape into the night sky beyond the town. But then, two dark shadows shot out from the center of the explosion, their wings slicing through the air. They approached Cyborg from the left and right, their purplish-blue hands grabbing Cyborg's left arm and right leg respectively. No effect. Cyborg's heart sank, and he struggled violently. But no matter how hard he struggled, it was clear he couldn't break free from a demon-like soldier with 1/10 the power of Doomsday. And two of them. Two demon-like soldiers fluttered in midair, seemingly trying to play with Cyborg. They pulled hard to the sides, straightening Cyborg's left arm and right leg. The mechanical bodies creaked. The demon-like soldiers threatened to tear Cyborg apart. No, no. Cyborg felt a wave of despair. He wasn't afraid of his own death, but the entire hope of the Justice League depended on him. He wouldn't tolerate failure. If he fell, the Justice League, and even Earth, would be doomed. Even if it meant self-destruction, perishing along with the two demon-like soldiers, he would preserve the mother box for Earth, leaving a glimmer of hope and hope. Just as Cyborg was about to make his final decision, whoosh! Several lava-like red ribbons appeared in the night sky. The crimson ribbons moved at an incredible speed, engulfing the demon-like bodies and entangling the limbs and wings of the two demon-likes simultaneously. The two demon-likes instinctively growled and struggled, but they were unable to break free from the red cloth. Their bones and muscles creaked as they were bound and suspended in the air. Cyborg was stunned. He knew full well that these weren't just ordinary demons, but powerful monsters with a Doomsday gene sequence. Now, two of them were being easily restrained by strange red bands. Less than a month had passed since the expedition began. When had such powerful figures appeared on Earth? Chapter 427 Scarlet Mode Nian joins the battle, Part 2. In the small town, countless residents, having emerged from their dreams, gazed skyward in terror. A gigantic, deformed demon-like monster struggled violently, unable to break free from its strange red bands. As the bands, more powerful than lava tentacles, gathered around it, its wings and body twisted and creaked. Cyborg, whose hands and feet were gripped by two demon-like monsters, seized the opportunity to wriggle free, clutching the mother box. However, a crimson force pulled both the demon-like monster and Cyborg downward. "I can't resist." His mechanical engine still revved, Cyborg stared in amazement at the crimson enveloping him. He could sense a powerful aura within, but it offered no harm. The two nearby demon-like monsters were not so lucky. Suppressed by the crimson force, their outer shells, harder than steel, vanished, revealing their white skeletons within. They fell back to the town's ground. Cyborg looked to the side and saw a very young man and woman approaching. Their hair was crimson, just like the magical energy surrounding them that controlled and annihilated everything. The young man looked familiar. "Are you Nian Prince?" Cyborg's database quickly identified his identity, which only made him even more shocked. Hadn't he died 3 years ago? Otherwise, Bruce wouldn't have gone to such lengths to invade the Apocalypse base and seize a mother box in order to resurrect Nian, a key figure. Cyborg. Nian waved his hand, removing the crimson magic from Cyborg's body. "Why are you the only one back? Where are the others?" He recognized him. It was Cyborg, a veteran of the Justice League, who had been part of the expedition to Apocalypse. He had seen him in his god mode during the previous battle with Steppenwolf. As he spoke, Nian looked at the towering monster beside him, reduced to nothing but flesh and bone, yet still struggling. As the crimson magic disintegrated the body, he also analyzed its secrets. "We've fallen into a trap," Cyborg said with a wry smile. It's as if Apocalypse knew we'd attack, and they've even engineered deminoids with Doomsday's genetic sequence. These incredibly powerful deminoids are everywhere on Apocalypse. I see. Zinnian nodded. He, too, discerned a Kryptonian aura among the deminoids. This half-Doomsday, half-deminoid monster, while not as powerful as the real Doomsday, was only slightly weaker than the Hulk. The breathtaking thing was that Apocalypse could mass-produce these monster soldiers. Just imagine, tens of thousands of flying Hulks, overwhelming the sky. No matter how hard they tried, they'd never be able to kill them all. It's doubtful the Justice League could stop them. What's the situation on Apocalypse now? Zinnian asked solemnly. Cyborg's intact, right? I was bloodshot. We were scattered the moment we entered Apocalypse. Just now, I was with Batman and Supergirl. They were covering for me as I returned with the mother box and stopped dozens of demon-like monsters. At this point, Cyborg stared intently at Nian and urgently asked, Nian Prince, do you have a solution? Any way to save this battle? Before this, Cyborg had completely doubted that a long-dead human boy could be the key to this assault spanning the entire universe. It was only because of his faith in Bruce Batman that Cyborg had given his all. And now, Cyborg looked at the boy, already resurrected without even using the mother box, and watched him easily subdue two demon-like monsters. His shimmering hope was rekindled. If it was him, perhaps, it was possible. To be honest, I'm not sure, Nian replied, shaking his head. Is that so? Cyborg forced a smile. After all, no matter how powerful the other party was, he was still just a teenager under 20. Asking him to face an enemy like Apocalypse was too much of a stretch. But then Zinnian continued, no one can guarantee absolute certainty in a supernatural battle of this magnitude without having witnessed it firsthand. You mean? Cyborg's breath hitched, his left electronic eye flashing red. Scarlet Mode, Zinnian said calmly, since the mother box can allow you to return to Earth, it can also open the sonic boom tunnel to Apocalypse, right? Young Master, Wanda said worriedly. Don't worry, I'll be back soon. Go talk to my aunt and the others about the situation. Zinnian patted Wanda's hand in reassurance. He had no intention of upgrading his abilities. After all, his current Scarlet Mode was already top tier, capable of facing any enemy in the universe. Zinnian worried that upgrading any more might upset the current balance. Right now, being able to perfectly control Scarlet Mode was already a pleasant surprise. Zinnian also had no intention of bringing the other members of the Destiny Alliance with him. If he couldn't even handle the current situation on Apocalypse, no amount of otherworldly heroes would be of any use. As for Wanda, she was powerful, but she couldn't fully control her abilities, making her prone to losing control and rampaging. The outcome will depend on what happens next. Zinnian took a deep breath. He wasn't worried about encountering an unbeatable foe. He was worried about arriving too late. At that moment, on Apocalypse, the sky was pitch black, a sheet of black cloth devoid of any stars. The planet's surface was a shattered mess. Not only were volcanic engines spewing flames, but blazing fires were also raging in many areas. In an Apocalypse base, destroyed to the point of being scrapped, a raging fire engulfed a well-equipped interior. On the ground lay a dozen demon-like bodies, their heads or chests punctured by fists. The battle continued. 10 meters above the base, a dark blonde woman in a Superman suit was bound to her body by specially crafted metal ropes. The sky and ground were filled with countless winged demons. Hundreds of them pulled on special ropes from all sides, pinning the woman in the Superman suit to immobility. The woman struggled with a groan of pain under the countless ropes. Outside the base, a tall man in a bat suit gasped for air. He was about to use his bat claws to fly up to support, but in the next moment, he was pinned to the ground by 3 or 4 demon-like monsters. Hiss. Sparks flew. The dark bat suit was ripped and torn by the demon-like claws. Blood flowed out, and Batman was pinned to the ground by the demon-like monsters, unable to rise. Damn it, is this the end? Batman clenched his fists and punched the demon-like monsters again and again. But his blows failed to shake the demon-like monster's 3-meter solid body, let alone release it. What shocked Batman was that the demon-like monsters were merely restraining his movements, not attempting to kill him. Clearly, these seemingly irrational demon-like creatures were under the unified command of a being behind the scenes. Were they trying to capture him alive? Batman, enraged, saw ahead, in the open space of the base, previously ablaze, gurgling. The burning metal suddenly twisted, transforming at visible speed into a large, heavy metal chair. A burly figure emerged from the depths of the base's corridor, and the surrounding demon-like monsters made way for a wide, long passage. As the figure nonchalantly straddled the chair, all the demon-like creatures standing on the ground dropped to one knee. Chapter 428 Despair, Supergirl's Final Takeoff. You are. Batman, pinned to the ground, looked up, aghast and furious, at the towering figure in the chair before him. Inside the base, a sleek chair crafted from freshly smelted metal sat a figure over 2 meters tall. Bald and clad in metal armor, his muscles immensely powerful, his face a resolute, gray-blue complexion. He casually sat astride the chair, one hand resting on his chin, his eyes gleaming with a terrifying white light, his presence radiating an air of unspoken authority. The surrounding doomsday-like demons knelt before him, not daring to rise above him, their bodies trembling uncontrollably. Lord. Supreme Master. The monstrous demons, previously capable of only killing and fighting, now spoke in unison. Batman's body trembled, too, but with a strange rage. The man's identity was self-evident. Leader of Apocalypse, chief of the New Gods, master of Steppenwolf, Darkseid. His name, like Thanos's, held the power of terror throughout the universe. His reputation is even 100 times more terrifying than Thanos's, sweeping across countless civilized star systems and decimating countless galaxies. He truly stands at the pinnacle of the universe. 10,000 years ago, he unleashed a devastating battle upon Earth. The combined forces of the ancient Greek gods, Green Lanterns, Atlantis, and the Asgardians barely managed to repel his opponent. At that time, Darkseid, leader of the Apocalypse Legion, was only a child. 3 years earlier, a single officer under his command, Steppenwolf, had nearly destroyed the Earth. He was the primary target of the Justice League's ongoing campaign, seeking to eliminate him. Unfortunately, it was the entire Justice League that was targeted. Is this a humiliation? Batman was filled with anger and horror. If the opponent hadn't revealed himself, he wouldn't have even seen him. Human. From the depths of the base emerged another old man dressed in a black cape. Standing beside Darkseid's chair, he bowed his head respectfully and sneered at Batman, who was pinned to the ground by the demon-like demon in front of him. Don't think too highly of yourself. You don't deserve to be humiliated by the Master. Of course, it's not bad that you made it here. Darkseid said coldly. From now on, you will be like those people just now, serving as a slave under Apocalypse, helping the Master dominate and control the universe. What did you mean, those people just now? Batman's eyes widened. Darkseid glanced at him coldly. You are the last. No, I don't believe it. Batman's eyes filled with bloodshot, his composure unbearable. The Master doesn't care. Darkseid sneered. Take them away. Darkseid finally spoke from his high seat, his composure unmoved. Yes, my master. Darkseid replied respectfully, waving his hand. Take them both to the base's transformation room. Immediately. Hundreds of doomsday-like demons around them all moved, dragging the pinned Batman and the bound Supergirl back to the base. Darkseid ignored them and leaned over to his leader, reporting, Master, a mother box has just been lost. One of them, modified by our apocalyptian technology, has escaped with a mother box, presumably heading to Earth. Perfect, Darkseid said indifferently. Send the Legion directly to Earth and retrieve the mother box and that thing. I thought so too, Darkseid smiled. But then, a whoosh, a chilling wind suddenly blew over the base. Crack. The hundreds of metal ropes binding Supergirl snapped, frozen into ice crystals at the break. Her red cape fluttered, and Supergirl drew her kryptonite and absorbed its energy, transforming into a stream of green light, hurtling towards Darkseid, seated in a chair below. Die? Supergirl didn't use any fancy abilities or tricks, only a single, all-out punch, a simple, direct one, condensed with kryptonite energy and her own remaining strength. Master. Darkseid was horrified. The Kryptonian was too fast, especially the enhanced Supergirl. Even the demon-like creature had no time to react as a powerful stream of green light rushed towards him. Darkseid, high in his chair, seemed to be unable to react, remaining motionless. At the final moment of Supergirl's fist's impact. Zzz! Darkseid's eyes suddenly glowed with 2 crimson rays, like 2 special energy entities, like Superman's heat vision, but 1,000 times faster. Tiny yet inconspicuous, they streaked through the air in irregular zigzag patterns. ZZ. Supergirl was sent flying backwards, Her right shoulder, where she had struck the blow, pierced by the crimson beam, staining her blue and red suit with blood. Bang! Dark blonde hair and a red cape fluttered as Supergirl fell to the metal ground outside the base. From the moment Supergirl broke free and attempted to kill Darkseid until Darkseid's attack sent Supergirl flying backwards, a split second passed. Even if the Flash had arrived, he wouldn't have reacted quickly enough. Only then did Deathshead finally react, screaming, "Catch her!" Surrounded by a kryptonite green glow, Supergirl clutched the wound on her right shoulder and struggled to her feet as hundreds of demon-like monsters swarmed from all directions. This is truly over. Blood streamed from the corners of Supergirl's lips, and she stumbled, struggling to keep her balance. She had used all her trump cards, but she couldn't even injure, let alone kill. Fly. Supergirl wanted to fly, but she had no strength left, no energy left to take off. In this moment of despair, Supergirl thought of many people: her cousin Clark Superman, her adoptive parents, the Danvers family, her biological parents on the now destroyed planet Krypton, her friend Gwen Stacy on Earth. But the one person who lingered most deeply in her heart was that one person. "Senior, you can fly if you want. I'm a Kryptonian, and you have the same power." Supergirl Kara recalled the words she had exchanged with that person 3 years ago. A knowing smile crossed her lips, blood splattered. "If I die, will I ever see you again? Come." A wave of dust ripped out from the surface of the earth. Supergirl gritted her teeth and persevered, taking flight. She no longer clutched her wound, but clenched her bloodied left fist, spilling blood down her suit. Better to die in battle than to be captured alive. Supergirl had come to her senses. As if sensing something, the hundreds of demon-like monsters charging forward suddenly froze in midair, not moving any closer. "Are you afraid too?" Supergirl sneered, but heard a crackling noise in the air behind her. "What?" Supergirl looked back, startled. What happened? It wasn't just Supergirl. On the field, Deathshead also looked up, a look of astonishment on his face. "That's the sonic boom tunnel. Someone's teleporting towards Apocalypse. I took a break yesterday. I'll put my best effort into finishing the final volume. If you have monthly votes, give them to this book. I'll give you a chance to win red envelopes in the group chat." Chapter 429 Goodbye Female Super, Scarlet Nian. Buzz. The air crackled above Apocalypse, and a hurricane-shaped tunnel appeared out of nowhere, as if it had gouged a hole through space, accompanied by a sharp, piercing sound. Clearly, that was the sonic boom tunnel, a function unique to Apocalypse's mother box. Within the tunnel, two figures, one large and one small, slowly emerged, a cyborg black man and a red-haired youth in a simple windbreaker. "Looking for death? You stole our Apocalypse's mother box, and you dared to return on your own." Deathshead sneered, recognizing the cyborg man as the human who had just fled Apocalypse with a mother box. He'd even planned to have the Doomsday Genetic Demon Army go to Earth and uncover him, only to return to Apocalypse less than 5 minutes after leaving. If that wasn't looking for death, what was it? Oh, calling for reinforcements. Deathshead glanced at the youth next to the black man. He didn't believe that the man's return from Earth with a single person would have any impact on the nearly settled war. Darkseid sat astride a chair, his chin resting on his hand, his face expressionless. His eyes flickered with destruction and rebirth as he cast his gaze upon the young man in the air. He felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity, though he couldn't explain where it came from. On the field, Supergirl's wounded and bloodied body trembled violently, her eyes trembling as she stared blankly at the young man who had appeared with Cyborg. "Why you are? Was this a hallucination before death?" Supergirl's already weakened strength drained away, and like a bird with a severely injured wing, she plummeted from the sky. With a swish, a stream of crimson transformed into fine red fabric, catching Supergirl in time. The magic levitation cloak transformed into a windbreaker, and the red-haired boy flew forward, grasping Supergirl's legs and back, pulling her into his arms. "Kara, can you hold on?" Nian asked worriedly. "Nian, is it really you? I'm not dreaming, am I? Or am I already dead?" Kara's beautiful face paled, appearing weak and exhausted. Her unfocused eyes were slightly vacant, as if she had slipped into a dreamlike state. "Don't worry. I'm here, and I won't let you die." Nian spoke, his gaze fixed on Supergirl's right shoulder, where a bloody hole pierced through it. Although the wound was small, it was the second time he had seen Kara, a Kryptonian, injured, and so severely so. After all, Kara was not only unafraid of kryptonite, her only weakness, but could also harness its energy to maximize her combat power. To injure her so severely, he could only have pierced through the biofield, Superman's suit, and the Man of Steel in a split second. Nian could also sense wisps of residual energy from the wound in Kara's right shoulder, absorbing it and sapping Supergirl's steel body and life. And that's just a Kryptonian. Any other superhero, like the Hulk or Cyborg, would have perished under that blow. Kara, recovering a bit, gazed excitedly at Nian's face. "Senior, it's really you. You'll be fine." Nian embraced Supergirl, channeling his crimson magic. Kara was so weak that Supergirl's force field shattered at the mere touch? Or perhaps it could be argued that Kara held no resistance to Nian, not even the crimson, a symbol of decomposition and destruction. The crimson, powerful enough to annihilate all matter in the universe, was grasped by Nian like a scalpel. The crimson didn't harm Kara in the slightest, instead flowing with precise intent towards the remaining energy within the wound. As the crimson and red collided, Supergirl couldn't help but groan in pain. But soon, the confrontation ended, and a blush returned to Supergirl Kara's pale face. "All right." Nian withdrew his crimson magic and said with a gentle smile, "Get some sleep. Everything will be fine." Hearing his words, Supergirl Kara nodded slightly. The Kryptonian, who had been as powerful as a god just a moment ago, now leaned against the young man's arms like a little bird, closing her eyes in peace, her breathing becoming even. Down below, Decid's aged face was filled with disbelief. How did he do that? How could he possibly eliminate that kind of energy from my master? This was absolutely unacceptable and intolerable to him. Decid knew all too well what his master had just done in response. It was one of Apocalypse's greatest secrets, the primary means by which they could dominate the universe and overthrow civilization. Decid instinctively glanced at his master in the chair beside him. Darkseid remained as calm and composed as ever, as if nothing could shake him. Decid finally breathed a sigh of relief and angrily issued an order, "Capture them all." Whoosh! Hundreds of Doomsday Gene-like demons immediately flapped their wings, creating a chaotic typhoon over the base. With their claws and fangs bared, they charged at Nian and the other two at breakneck speed. Even Gangu felt a chill run through his body at the onslaught. He had nearly been ripped apart by these demons, reduced to a pile of literal steel. Nian, in scarlet mode, looked up. As his gaze shifted from Kara to the surrounding Doomsday Gene-like demons, his previous gentleness instantly turned icy and merciless. Scarlet. From the boy's eyes, hair, body, and even the surrounding air, like thick blood, like frozen flames, it was the embodiment of rage. From Nian, a violent and powerful crimson spread outward, enveloping the hundreds of demons that were attacking him. Hundreds of Doomsday Gene demons charging forward were shattered by the crimson surge. The legion of demons that had previously inflicted despair on the Justice League could barely hold out for 3 seconds in the crimson tide, their bodies, bones, and internal organs melting and evaporating. Hiss! The powerful demons flew like moths to flame. In less than 5 seconds, the demons above the base were completely annihilated, leaving not a single remnant behind. So powerful. Cyborg, standing beside Nian, was stunned. 2 or 3 Doomsday Gene demons had already made him feel formidable, but now hundreds of them had been annihilated in an instant. Then, he clenched his fists in immense excitement. This is possible. With Nian Prince here, maybe we can really turn the tables. Go again. Decid, though equally shocked, still gave the command indifferently. The most terrifying thing about the Doomsday Gene demons was their sheer numbers. Before tens of thousands of demons, even a Kryptonian Green Lantern would bow down. And so, more Doomsday Gene-type demons gathered above the base here, like cannon fodder, rushing towards the young man who was constantly radiating scarlet power without fear of death. Chapter 430 Scarlet Nian vs. Darkseid. What a scene! Countless Doomsday Gene demons blanketed the sky, erupting like a swarm from every corner of Apocalypse, charging towards the crimson-encased Nian and his companions. These 3-meter-tall, powerful, and terrifying genetically modified demons, merely flying into the crimson cloud or being washed and battered by the crimson tide, instantly disintegrated into white skeletons and fleshy, mucous membranes, before completely disintegrating and evaporating into nothingness. In less than a minute, tens of thousands of demon-like legions perished in this strange crimson. Tens of thousands of Doomsday Gene demons, a significant number for Apocalypse, capable of easily conquering and controlling thousands of civilizations. Desed already regretted his orders. He had originally thought that no matter how powerful the enemy was, he could use the Doomsday Gene demons to wear them down, just as Superman had done before. But now, tens of thousands of Doomsday Gene demons perished one after another, like a small stone dropped into a lake, not even a splash. The opponent's crimson energy was endless, showing no sign of depletion. If Scarlet Zinnian knew Desed's thoughts, he would have laughed out loud. This was Crimson Mode. The Chaos Crimson magic alone was enough to reach the high level of a single universe. And, compared to Superman's physical prowess, Crimson magic was only strong in area damage. As long as the opponent's physical strength was below the high level of a single universe, no matter how many came, they would be dead. Another minute passed. The crimson above the base only grew more and more, forming a dark red cumulus cloud. Cyborg, who was in the space vacated by the crimson, felt his scalp tingle. If he went in, he would probably be completely annihilated. Cyborg had no doubts about this. Until 3 minutes passed. The number of demons gathering over the base dwindled, but tens of thousands still arrived. Add to that the 100,000 demons that had briefly vanished. That was 100,000 demons with a Doomsday Gene. Not a single wreck remained. Desed's eyes were red, his whole body was trembling, and he completely regretted his order. After this, his position would likely decline. However, Desed still refused to order the demons to stop or retreat. It wasn't that Desed didn't want to, but he didn't dare. Darkseid, the greatest being of Apocalypse and the supreme ruler, was watching from the side. Desed knew all too well. This ruler would not tolerate failure, and even less would he tolerate damage to Apocalypse's and his prestige. Apocalypse pride wouldn't allow him to stop. Amidst the crimson clouds, Cyborg grew increasingly excited, saying, "It's doable. If we keep going this way, we can wipe out all these demons." Nian shook his head. "Don't be so optimistic." He knew clearly that from the very beginning, the crux of this war spanning the entire universe hadn't been the Doomsday Gene demons. It had been about one person. Just as the number of demons dead surpassed 150,000, approaching half the demon army. Inside the base, the supreme ruler, seated higher on his metal throne, suddenly rose. As he did, Desed, beside him, prostrated himself completely. "The master is about to strike," Desed exclaimed in terror. "Can't hold it in any longer." Within the crimson cloud, Nian's face darkened as he gazed at the massive figure rising up below him. Supergirl, seemingly awakened, spoke weakly and laboriously, "Watch out." His eyes. Nian and Darkseid, hundreds of meters apart, stared at each other through a crimson cloud. In that instant, time and space seemed to freeze. Then, Nian saw Darkseid's eyes, filled with the image of countless stars destroyed and countless civilizations reborn. A crimson glowed in those indifferent eyes. Zzz. Two parallel, tiny crimson rays instantly shattered space-time, tracing an irregular, straight arc, piercing the crimson cloud that had annihilated over 150,000 demonoids. Spider-Sense hadn't even had time to issue a warning. By the time Nian realized what was happening, the two tiny crimson rays were already approaching. "Open!" Scarlet Zinnian shouted. A golden round shield suddenly appeared before him, but it was pierced through the instant it appeared. Then, a glass mirror appeared in the air before Zinnian. It was a mirror dimension. He attempted to redirect the opponent's attack into a parallel dimension. He succeeded. Two crimson rays sank into the mirror, causing a slight distortion and stagnation. But in the next moment, with a swish, two crimson rays passed through the mirror and continued to shoot towards Scarlet Zinnian's eyebrows. Bang! Zinnian's body trembled violently. He was thrown backwards through the air, holding Supergirl Kara, and was directly knocked out of the center of the crimson cloud. The two fell diagonally to the metal ground outside the base. Failed. The steel skeleton in his mechanical body felt cold all over. His electronic eyes and systems had no time to react. Now, even Zinnian Prince, the key figure and only hope, had been defeated. Who else could stop Apocalypse? As a living being in this universe, it's worth it to have my master intervene. Desed smiled, doubting that Zinnian could survive the Omega radiation, especially a hit to his vitals. However, Darkseid didn't sit down. Instead, his eyes, gleaming crimson, narrowed. Desed's smile froze, and he stared out in disbelief. Outside the base, the red-haired boy rubbed his brow with lingering fear, then lifted himself up, holding Supergirl. "It hurts, it hurts, it hurts. I almost died." Desed couldn't contain his pain any longer, exclaiming in shock, "How did you do it? How could you survive that attack?" "They said I almost died. Even being able to penetrate an entire parallel dimension is truly a terrifying, perverted ability." Nian exhaled. If he were closer, he'd surely see it. At that moment, two small nicks appeared on the red band around his wrist and the cloak he wore. Just now, the crimson cloud, the shield, and the mirror dimension had all been pierced. In the end, the red band and the magic levitation cloak had blocked the attack. Despite this, Nian felt a stinging, burning sensation between his brows. If it weren't for the numerous defensive measures weakening him, even his perfect steel body would have been pierced. Although he had already sensed Supergirl's formidable abilities from her injuries, he hadn't expected them to be so perverted. "I can't defeat her," Nian sighed, shaking his head. His crimson power was already powerful enough, yet he encountered an energy ray with even greater attack power. Nian understood completely. The opponent was likely a lower-level projection of a multiverse being. Their ray power contained a portion of the laws and will of a world beyond, capable of obliterating all cosmic objects it struck. Similar to the Crimson Magic's decomposition and annihilation abilities, its power was purer and more singular, a ray power designed solely for destruction. "I am the king who reigns supreme in this universe. There has never been anyone like me among you," Darkseid said calmly. "This is your honor, the glory of this universe. You can choose to submit and die for Darkseid." "Master." Desed's face was filled with shock and envy. His master was actually actively seeking to recruit him. "If you die for me, I can consider it." Nian responded seriously, but then shook his head. "Forget it, you're so ugly, I don't want to die for me." "How dare you?" Desed was so angry that his whole body was shaking. "Then you will die." Darkseid did not disappoint. His tone was calm and composed, as if stating a fait accompli. "Since I can't beat you, there's nothing I can do," Nian said helplessly, suddenly lowering his head and kissing the Supergirl Kara in his arms. Chapter 431 Red Super Mode, Magic Superman? What is he doing? Desed stared outside the base, stunned by the sudden kiss on the young man embracing Supergirl. This was before the Dark Lord. "Have you given up?" Then, Desed sneered, believing this was the other party's final farewell. Earthlings simply love to be sentimental, hence their vulnerability. But Darkseid, standing nearby, had a dark expression. At that moment, as if remembering something, his eyes suddenly shone with a destructive crimson light, and he unleashed two erratic Omega beams. Zzz. ZZ. The Omega beams instantly pierced the air, bursting out from the base, heading straight for the kissing couple, threatening to pierce them. In a critical moment, Nian barely had time to glance up. His eyes, already filled with a chaotic crimson, now burned like a burning iron, along with his eye sockets. Hiss. His gaze transformed into two crimson rays of energy, unbending and piercingly intercepting the approaching Omega ray. The clash of cutting-edge cosmic energies caused the surrounding space to vibrate, radiating chaos, destruction, cold, heat, and other mighty forces. Soon, both the Omega ray and the gaze energy beam vanished. Indeed, both vanished without warning, leaving not even a trace of energy within Apocalypse. Did you successfully take that blow? Impossible. Desed's mouth dropped open in astonishment, his eyes nearly popping out of their sockets. This wasn't simply a matter of eliminating the residual energy in the wound, it was a true, direct neutralization of the Omega ray's attack. Beside him, Darkseid's face was solemn, his hands clenched into fists, and he finally spoke calmly, looking directly at him. "It was you." Nian didn't respond. At this point, his health was in dire straits. Even the already powerful Crimson Mode was barely under control. Now, facing Darkseid, Nian had no choice but to give it his all, layering abilities onto the easily out-of-control Chaos Crimson Mode. Other abilities had little impact on his strength, so he could only take the risk of layering Kara's Kryptonian superhuman abilities. When Chaos Crimson, a power that could rank among the highest in a single universe, merged with the equally powerful yet more comprehensive Kryptonian superhuman abilities, Nian felt as if his body were about to explode. Superhuman force and crimson magic, a body of steel and a wizard's physique, innate supernatural powers and acquired multidimensional insights, these two completely incompatible and incompatible abilities were being forced to merge within him. Nian felt as if every cell in his body was exploding like a miniature supernova. Death, death, death. A powerful and endless crimson pulsed through his body. Boom, boom. Muscles swelled, then quickly rebounded, repeating this cycle with increasing frequency. Plop. Plop. A powerful heartbeat like a drum. Xinian. Supergirl Kara groaned in pain, the pain coming from Xinian's grip. Xinian gritted his teeth, regaining consciousness at Kara's call, and struggled to move his fingers. Sorry, I'll get you to safety. The dimensional ring activated, sending Kara into the inner world of the devouring dimension. The moment Supergirl Kara departed, Xinian finally lost his patience. He clenched his fists, and the metal ground beneath his feet cracked. Boom. A crimson bolt of lightning streaked across the night sky of Apocalypse, striking directly beside Xinian. The Doomsday Gene demons in the air and surroundings were instantly reduced to ash by the crimson lightning's brush. Sizzle. Raging, chaotic crimson energy swirled around his body like countless lightning bolts. Xinian's eyes flickered with the fire of rationality on the verge of losing control. His body, transformed from a teenager into the towering height of a young man, his dark red hair rapidly growing, a cape falling to his waist. It's him. It's actually him. Desid screamed. There was one thing Desid didn't want to mention, or even recall: he had died 3 years ago. He remembered that the sonic boom tunnel had briefly connected Apocalypse and Earth. A young human, standing on Earth, launched a punch at Apocalypse. The force of that punch traveled through the sonic boom tunnel to Apocalypse. Even now, the hallway of Apocalypse headquarters remains an unfillable abyss. That blow, except for the Master, left no one alive. Even after Desid was resurrected by Apocalypse's mother box, that fear lingered deep within his genes, which was the reason Apocalypse didn't immediately intervene. 3 years of investigation had led to the conclusion that the man, who had been believed long gone from Earth, was actually here, merely in a slightly altered appearance and aura. Stop. Red Super Mode Xinian's forehead bulged with veins as he screamed uncontrollably. A blend of crimson magic and Kryptonian power surged through his body like flames and lightning. He looked up at the sky, and 2 crimson rays pierced the inky black night of Apocalypse, shooting out into the interstellar horizon. As his gaze swept across, the crimson rays, like giant swords, cleaved the night sky in two. In mid-air, countless demons were severed, their bodies spontaneously combusting into nothingness before they even hit the ground. Red Super Mode Xinian wasn't targeting them, he was acting out of control. Swish. Red Super Mode Xinian's gaze fell, and in that instant, a blast of crimson magic and heat energy completely cleaved the already devastated base ahead. Not only the base was slit, but almost 1/5 of Apocalypse itself was cut open, annihilating everything in its path. Desid's legs trembled with fear as he collapsed to the ground. The beam passed less than half a meter from him, leaving an indelible, narrow abyss in its wake. It's him, and it's not him. Weaker than last time, Darkseid muttered to himself, a look of fear etched in his eyes. Then, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. No matter what, he couldn't be stopped. Although he could see that Xinian was in poor condition, he still felt a sense of threat. Darkseid's eyes once again blazed with omega beams, crimson lightning with its own will, slicing the air ahead. Red Super Xinian struggled to raise his eyes, barely blocking the crimson heat with the force of his eyes, but sensed another crimson lightning bolt approaching from behind. There was more than one omega beam, and it was coming from both front and back. Too fast. Zzz. The omega beam pierced through both the magic levitation cloak and Red Super Xinian, exiting through his left chest. Xinian. The cyborg in the air cried out in shock. Wow. Hongzhou Xinian coughed up blood and collapsed forward. Success. Before Desid, slumped on the ground, could even show any joy, he saw the prostrate Hongzhou Xinian coughing up blood as he climbed back up. Blood gushed from the hole in his left chest. His life force, which had been fading, merged with the blood and crimson, reigniting it. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 432, Betting Everything, Ultimate 3-in-1. Watching the red-haired youth rise again outside the base, Desid trembled all over. His perceptions had been overturned countless times today. Monster, he's a monster. That was Omega Beam. A transcendental power capable of annihilating everything. He was still alive after being pierced through the heart? Wait. Was he dead, alive, or in a state of being neither dead nor alive? Darkseid's face was expressionless. He suddenly leaped from the base several dozen meters high, his massive form fused with his armor, landing on the ground not far from Nian. Darkseid raised his right hand to the sky. A golden spear, imbued with immense energy, was carried down by 4 demonic beings. His massive hand grasped the spear's handle. An indescribable aura revived. Darkseid's eyes shone with a crimson light. He raised the golden spear high above his head and slammed it down onto the metal ground before him. Bang! The earth shook. The metallic surface exploded like a volcanic eruption, molten lava surging outward, carving an energy imprint 100 meters in diameter. The Dark Lord stood at the center of the energy imprint, the entirety of Apocalypse feeding him energy. Decid, along with numerous other demons, prostrated themselves on the ground, heads bowed. Decid knew his master was about to strike, not only using Omega Rays but also wielding his full might to annihilate the opponent from this world. Such a one-on-one confrontation had only ever occurred to one other person. Move. Nian, in red super mode, felt helpless, finding his body still defying his will, only able to perform simple movements. In this state, no matter how powerful, he would be no match for Darkseid. Facing Darkseid's impending attack, Red Super Nian steeled his resolve and threw himself into a desperate attempt. Whatever, I'll just have to take a gamble. He used the Ring of Dimension, and a gray-white cube-shaped box appeared between his hands. The box trembled as if alive, attempting to escape. That's the Mother Box, the stolen Mother Box. Decid instantly recognized the object in the young man's hand. After all, it was the culmination of Apocalypse cutting-edge technology, one of their most prized possessions. But the next moment, Decid's mind went blank. Then, the red-haired young man squeezed his hands together, and cracks suddenly appeared on the Mother Box, emitting a burst of white energy. He's crazy. Decid didn't know whether to be astonished by the man's mad attempt to crush the Mother Box, or by his ability to shatter one of the strongest objects in the universe. That's exactly what Nian wanted. While other actions in red super mode couldn't accomplish this, crushing a box was still manageable. Since the fusion of Scarlet and Krypton was on the verge of losing control, he might as well add an equally powerful ability to try to restore balance among the three. Of course, Nian had no confidence. As he'd said, this was a huge gamble. Nian was risking everything, even the future of Earth and the universe. Success could turn the tide of the war. And failure, at least, wouldn't be worse than the desperate situation just now. Zzzz. The Mother Box, squeezed in Nian's hands, cracked. Blazing white beams burst out in all directions, seemingly transforming into a white ball of destructive light. Just before the ball of light exploded, bang! A burly figure, clearly a step faster, leaped in front. The golden spears in both hands, swirling with energy, plunged into the Mother Box and the young man's chest. Swish! The golden spears completely pierced the white ball of light, exploding. The massive energy-wrapped spearhead continued forward, easily piercing the chest of the red-haired young man standing still. The giant spearhead burst out from the red-haired young man's back, emitting scorching energy that erupted outward, turning the ground behind him for 1,000 meters into molten lava. Ha ha ha. I don't believe he can't die like this. Decid's face was filled with madness. He felt that this Earth alien, this cognitive subversion, made him, the think tank of Apocalypse, look like an idiot. Combined with the fear he'd felt 3 years ago, Decid felt he wouldn't be able to sleep peacefully for the rest of his life if the other man didn't die. Nian. In the air. Cyborg felt a wave of despair, seeing no hope. Only the Dark Lord, Darkseid, remained, his face drooping. He grasped the golden spear, but he felt no real sensation piercing his body. Then, the red-haired youth, his face drooping after being pierced through the chest by the spear, suddenly reached out his right hand and grasped the spear's handle. Darkseid instinctively tried to pull the weapon back, but as he exerted force with both hands, the spear remained motionless, as if stuck in the youth's chest. With a swish, the crimson shimmered, the red-haired youth's body seemed both real and unreal, a dreamlike illusion. His form seemed to lie somewhere between reality and fantasy, devoid of physical substance. His head and limbs seemed formed from a crimson mist of light. His dark red cape fluttered back, and his body transformed into a crimson battlesuit, fused to his form. An S was etched in the center of his chest. You actually. Darkseid hadn't finished his words when the scarlet-haired youth raised his eyes, a powerful white light emanating from them. He raised his free left hand and delivered a punch. Bang! The air exploded in layers nearby, and the force of his punch created a shockwave that sent Darkseid flying. Darkseid's massive body slammed straight into the base behind him, shattering dozens of walls and pillars. The already dilapidated Apocalypse base was now completely destroyed. 100 meters away, the scarlet-haired youth floated in the air half a meter above the ground. With both hands, he pulled out a golden spear from his chest. Crimson lightning energy sizzled around the spear, and he raised his right hand as if to throw it. Whoosh! The golden spear evaporated into thin air, and in the next instant, it had sunk into the hole Darkseid had created, disappearing into the base. It was just a spear throw, but it felt like an intercontinental missile, a powerful energy explosion. Boom! Countless crimson lightning bolts erupted from the base, sweeping across it, and the entire Apocalypse base collapsed. No. Desid, shielded by several Doomsday Gene demons, had already evacuated the base, but even at the edge, he was struck by a wisp of crimson lightning that emanated from the air. He was horrified, but he followed the fate of the demons around him. The crimson lightning instantly penetrated his body from head to toe, vaporizing his body and obliterating his soul. Apocalypse's genetic sequence was directly blasted into nothingness. It was safe to say that even with the mother box, he would never be able to be resurrected again. Whoosh! Cyborg, clutching the unconscious Bruce Batman, barely escaped the edge of the collapsed base. He gazed upon the now transformed Crimson Youth with a mixture of surprise and horror. Nian, you. I'm fine. Or rather, I'm fine, better than ever. The Crimson Youth, floating in the air, remained silent, but his voice echoed through Cyborg's mind. A gleam of wisdom shone in his eyes, and a slight smile curved his lips. Success. Crimson Vision, Kryptonian Power, Apocalypse Wisdom. This was an unprecedented, ultimate 3-in-1 power. Chapter 433 Beyond Everything, Super Red Mode. Scarlet, the magical category, Krypton, the genetic category, and Apocalypse, the technological category. Each holds its own position at the pinnacle of the universe within its own category, and now, these three incompatible abilities are superimposed and fused together. Of course, they aren't completely fused as before, but rather like a three-legged tripod, each aiding the other in breaking down their own boundaries. This feeling is truly wonderful. Nian glanced down at his hands. Without the aid of his magical levitation cloak, he stood freely and autonomously in midair, his crimson form looming. His body seemed completely reshaped, like a condensation of fused energy. It transcended the concept of cosmic life, existing somewhere between substance and nothingness. The youth's perfectly proportioned body was clad in a dark red Superman suit. With a flicker, in a single blink, a 2-meter-long crimson flash of lightning flashed from Nian's golden red eyes. The puncture point of his chest, previously pierced by Darkseid's spear, healed at a visible speed, energized by the crimson mist within his body, resembling the flow of a galaxy. Even the bloody hole in his left chest, left by the Omega Ray, healed along with the transformed scarlet Superman suit. Nian could sense that he was once again in Apocalypse Super God mode. He could easily touch the barriers of this universe, clearly glimpse into and perceive its mysteries. In terms of power, it was even greater than his super body mode. Most importantly, combination. His mind, soul, body, and even the laws of nature, everything was elevated to the highest possible perfection, capable of manifesting in this universe. How should I describe this mode? Apocalypse Red Super Mode. Nian stroked his chin, unexpectedly revealing a moment of leisure at this critical juncture for the Apocalypse battlefield, humanity, and the universe. Brother, please be serious. Cyborg, having just rescued Batman, was about to offer a warning. But then, the ruins of the Apocalypse base ahead exploded, and a tall, burly figure, spear in hand, burst forth, leaping hundreds of meters to the ground. Darkseid's eyes shone coldly, his face a grimace. The armor on his right shoulder shattered, but overall, he wasn't seriously injured. Are you okay after taking that blow? Cyborg, witnessing this, felt the disparity between them. Even without the Doomsday Gene demons blocking the way, the Justice League's might wouldn't necessarily defeat them. Cyborg, step back a bit, or you won't be caught up in the fight later. Nian's voice echoed in Cyborg's mind. Conveyed through both thought and intelligence, the voice was cold, yet it carried the relaxed yet serious mood of its owner. Right now. Cyborg instantly lifted Batman, his mechanical body's engines revving, and flew a kilometer or two away from the battlefield. Most of the devil demons in this area had already been cleared. Now, the remaining Doomsday Gene demons were focused entirely on Nian, and not a single Doomsday Gene demon could stop Cyborg's retreat. Is this distance enough? Cyborg muttered to himself. Then, Nian's voice echoed from his system's core again, just retreat twice as far and you'll be about right. Cyborg was startled, but he obeyed, carrying Batman for another 2 kilometers. Perhaps even Cyborg himself didn't realize that his faith in Nian was no less than Batman's, if not far greater. 5 kilometers, probably. Nian glanced at the surviving demonoids around him. He had just killed over 100,000, and the number still seemed staggering. Under his gaze, the demonoids, who had previously preferred to serve as cannon fodder, only following orders and killing, suddenly showed fear in their eyes. Their wings trembled, unable to stay aloft, and they plummeted to the ground below. It wasn't fear that affected them. Rather, it was the Doomsday Gene sequence, Krypton's natural enemy, that these demonoids possessed within them, and they were terrified and fearful. It was as if they were facing the true ruler of Krypton. Trample. Trample. 2 demon-like creatures fell to the battlefield, their heads crushed beneath their feet. King Darkseid charged forward, golden spear in hand. Without further ado, he unleashed the same power that had decimated countless cosmic giants. The spear, brimming with earth-shattering energy and swirling with golden lightning, its tip effortlessly sliced through the earth and air, radiating murderous intent. Facing Darkseid's blast, Nian clenched his right hand, breathed into his fist, and swung forward, a fusion of superhuman abilities. No weapons were necessary, his fist and physique were his ultimate weapon. A crimson fist. As the golden spear and crimson fist collided, Apocalypse fell silent, followed by a devastating explosion. Boom. Dozens of golden and crimson lightning bolts clashed across the battlefield, like 2 small nuclear bombs colliding and detonating head-on. Damn it! Cyborg cursed. His cybernetic vision was filled with a raging, chaotic haze of energy and dust, the impact still rapidly approaching him. He quickly hugged Batman to his chest, using his back as a shield and energizing his entire body's engines to pull away. Bang! The aftermath slammed Cyborg and Batman down from the air, pinning them to the ground of Apocalypse, struggling to breathe. A flustered Cyborg wiped the dust from his cybernetic vision and peered forward, stunned to see that the battlefield had briefly expanded more than tenfold. A 2-kilometer diameter crater had appeared where the base had once stood. Above the crater, golden and crimson lightning, brimming with destructive force, struck continuously, slicing through the air. Deep cracks appeared on the surface of the crater, from which gushed boiling lava. The earth trembled and shook uncontrollably, preventing even the Doomsday demons from joining the fray. On the battlefield, the burly king, wielding a golden spear, and the unarmed Scarlet Youth engaged in close combat. Every clash unleashed a catastrophic natural phenomenon. In a single second, these clashes, capable of shattering the earth and ripping the sky apart, unfolded a dozen times. Cyborg shuddered, feeling that even a 10-kilometer retreat, let alone a 5-kilometer one, would be too conservative. These two were the 2 most powerful beings in the universe. This was a true clash of pinnacle proportions. Hurricanes, lightning, shockwaves, riptides, sonic booms. The earth of Apocalypse exploded beyond endurance, and the inky black sky was crisscrossed with lightning. Cyborg's electronic eyes flickered, and he noticed that this wasn't just a head-on clash. Each of their moves carried not only unimaginable power and energy, but also astonishing, cutting-edge technique and a brimming murderous intent. Furthermore, as Scarlet Nian and Darkseid engaged in close combat, their eyes shone with a literal, crimson light of destruction. Zzz! Zzz! Red lightning and crimson rays simultaneously clashed between the two. The Omega rays that are powerful enough to wipe out everything, and the fusion energy rays of the scorching chaos, flash and destroy like straight and winding lightning. Chapter 434 Omega. Mowing the grass without peer. On the battlefield of Apocalypse, a mere 2-man battle erupted into the terrifying spectacle of the massive interstellar war. Power, energy, and authority, at the pinnacle of the universe, clashed fiercely. Clang. The golden spear hummed violently, its explosive force unimaginable, nearly ripping it free from his grasp. This was the first time Darkseid had encountered such a formidable single opponent. Every confident shot he launched was met with the Crimson Youth's crimson fists, the rebounding force even causing pain in Darkseid's palms. However, that wasn't what infuriated him. "Are you imitating me?" Darkseid exclaimed in shock and fury. The opponent had originally only emitted a special fusion energy heat ray, its trajectory as straight and unchanging as his gaze. But in the clash with the Omega Ray, it gradually became like the Omega Ray, capable of changing its trajectory according to its master's will. Imitation is a bad word. This is borrowing. Scarlet Zinnian's eyes flashed, and streams of crimson lightning continued to blaze from them. He clashed repeatedly with the crimson lightning like Omega Rays, a battle repeated hundreds of times in a single second. Previously, Zinnian had always been forced to defensively block the enemy's Omega Rays with scarlet lightning energy. While seemingly equal, Zinnian actually expended many, even dozens, of times more fusion energy to barely dissipate even a fraction of Darkseid's Omega Rays. Now, amidst the relentless battle, Super Red Zinnian's eyes, while flashing crimson fusion energy, struck back. Their golden red pupils also peered into the mysteries of the Omega Rays, attempting to analyze and evolve them. In terms of offensive power, Omega Rays, even more potent than Scarlet Magic, were arguably the most powerful power in the universe, bar none. If only Scarlet and Kryptonian powers combined, even if Zinnian could block them, he would never be able to deduce and mimic the Omega Rays. But now, the power of the Apocalypse Mother Box had also been added. Super Red Zinnian's brain was like the most powerful computer in the universe, far surpassing Brainiac's supposed 9th-level intelligence. It continuously deduced the Omega Rays method at an astonishing speed. In just 1 second, the sheer amount of calculations generated by Super Red Zinnian's brain would have paralyzed all computers on Earth for 10 years. I see. Super Red Zinnian's eyes shone brighter and brighter. With a thud, crimson lightning flashed from his eyes again. Only a fraction of the previous fusion energy was lost, but it inexplicably transformed into a torrent of tiny lightning, imbued with the aura of destruction and annihilation. Controlled by his mind, it moved with incredible fluidity, drawing a Z in the air at breakneck speed. Zzz, 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 two similar crimson lightning bolts, each drawing a beautiful zigzag line, collided and exploded, a single streak enough to annihilate the seemingly powerful Doomsday Gene Demon. In the next instant, the clashing crimson lightning vanished. Impossible. Seeing this, Darkseid's usually calm and composed face finally revealed an expression of disbelief. It was the Omega Ray. The other party was actually using Omega Effect Rays. Ha ha ha, so that's how it is. I get it. This is really fun. Super Red Zinnian grinned happily, like a child with a new toy. Crimson lightning flashed from his eyes, tracing paths as his mind tracked. These crimson lightning bolts not only confronted Darkseid, but also had enough energy to clear out the demon-like legions at the edge of the battlefield. Zzz! In a mere moment, a crimson lightning bolt, without any loss, pierced through and killed thousands of Doomsday Gene-like demons. Impossible. How could you possibly do that? Darkseid growled, as if his pride had been deeply insulted. Seeing the other party's anxiety, Super Red Zinnian's smile widened. He had indeed just grasped the profound power beyond this universe, the Omega Effect. Now, Zinnian understood its power. The Omega Effect didn't originate from his current universe, but from other multiverses. In other words, the Omega Rays were a special law, a unique law of destruction controlled only by Darkseid. Just like the death controlled by the goddess of death, it possesses the sure killing effect of the law of cause and effect. Super Red Zinnian sighed deeply. Scarlet, a fantasy made real, Krypton, and the infinite deduction of Apocalypse. Only by possessing these three abilities simultaneously, having seen Omega Rays numerous times, and having come into physical contact with them time and again, could one achieve mimetic evolution. The conditions were far too demanding. After all, even heroes and villains of the single universe would most likely be instantly reduced to ash when confronted by Omega Rays. ZZ. Zinnian's mimetic evolution of Omega Rays, generated by fusion energy, collided with Darkseid's true Omega Rays. In an instant, they flowed through the air, and both vanished from Apocalypse. At this moment, the Milky Way, a new star. What's that? The numerous alien residents looked up at the sky, seeing two tiny crimson lightning bolts suddenly appear above the square. The clashing red light sent a shudder through their hearts. Such a powerful energy. Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, glanced upward. For the first time, she witnessed a burst of energy rivaling the power of the twin stars within her body. Were these two energies similar, or did they originate from different entities? Captain Marvel followed the crimson lightning, sensing the passage, but could not trace the source of these opposing energies. If she had known that these energies came from the other side of the universe, that this was just a tiny spill, she might not have considered the word rivaled. Asgard, the divine realm. Atop the rainbow bridge spanning the waterfall and river, Thor, wielding a massive wooden axe, stood on the deck of the spaceship, facing Hela, who stood on the blood-soaked grounds of Asgard. The two were about to strike, but then stopped, fear in their expressions. Suddenly, two crimson bolts of lightning burst from above the rainbow bridge, chasing each other, destroying each other in a flash. Earth, Washington. Zzz. Two flashes of crimson lightning flashed from high in the sky. As countless local tourists watched in horror, the Washington Monument was split open in half, its upper section collapsing with a thunderous roar. Somewhere in the universe, somewhere unknown. It's him. He dared to leave Earth. A voluptuous woman in a black gauze dress sneered. The slaying of her most powerful and useful suitor, Thanos, filled her with rage. It had been ages since she'd felt this angry. She'd promised him not to set foot on Earth again, so she held back. But now, the goddess of death sensed him. He was clearly on a planet far from Earth. Her face blurred, as if veiled by a dark veil of death. She took a step forward, her graceful, voluptuous figure vanishing from the spot where she stood. The next moment, the goddess of death had traversed countless galaxies, appearing billions of light years away. With each step, she journeyed through the universe, drawing ever closer to the apocalypse. It's really far. It'll take me more than 10 seconds to get there. The death goddess spoke coldly, but just as she reached one step, she suddenly stopped. You are. The death goddess's expression was moved. Suddenly, an elegant black umbrella appeared in front of her. Its owner blocked the death goddess's path. Chapter 435, I, Darkseid, am willing to call you the strongest. Batman Bruce awoke from his coma. The moment he opened his eyes, his body and mind instinctively tensed, only to be greeted by the familiar face of Cyborg approaching. Batman quickly glanced around, realizing he was still on Apocalypse. Wearily, he checked, Victor, what's going on? It's Nian, Cyborg replied. What? Batman was still a little stunned. Cyborg quickly said, it's the key you mentioned, Nian Prince. If it weren't for him, you, me, and even Earth would probably cease to exist. You mean? Batman quickly stood up, but just as he emerged from the shelter of a shattered base wall, he was crushed by the powerful aftermath of the oncoming impact. Crouching on the ground, Batman's mask, glowing white, gazed forward, gazing at the ravaged battlefield. Countless deep trenches and gulps filled the air, blazing lava erupted upward, and crimson lightning crisscrossed every corner of the battlefield. Everywhere he looked was devastation. From 10 kilometers away, the permeating aura of destruction could be felt. A tall, burly figure clashed fiercely with another, a crimson youth. The two were like the embodiment of natural disasters. Every blow shattered the earth, and the once inky black sky was dyed blood red by the clashing lightning. The once powerful Doomsday Jinn demons now dared not even approach the battlefield. Even the edge of the battlefield, 6 or 7 kilometers away, was obliterated by the crimson lightning. Is that Nian Prince? Batman asked in astonishment. Now, he's not only the key, but also our only hope, Cyborg said slowly, not daring to breathe. We must win. On the battlefield. That's about enough fun, Nian, who had evolved the Omega Ray, suddenly said. What did you say? Play. Darkseid's cold, gray face darkened to an extremely grim expression. Veins bulged from his rock-hard, gray muscles. He slammed his feet back, cracking the ground. His massive body and the golden spear he wielded slashed forward. Darkseid's momentum was unstoppable. This was the arrogance of his position as the overlord of the multiverse. Even a mere shadowy clone would be unmatched in this universe. He had swept through billions of civilizations, annihilated countless self-proclaimed gods and fighting races, and yet the one before him was just a human. Fueled by the energy of Apocalypse, this was Darkseid's most powerful strike. This single blow was enough to sink an entire continental plate. Boom! The unexpected energy collision erupted. Darkseid's eyes widened. He was in midair, golden spear in hand. He saw the crimson youth, standing high above the ground, reach out and grasp the spear's tip, brimming with energy. Puff! The golden spear's power was completely neutralized by the opponent's single hand, and its energy poured into his crimson body, like a sun being dropped into a bottomless black hole. Before it could unleash its full power, it was completely absorbed. Thank you, Super Red Zinnian grinned. Krypton's Superman already possessed a self-contained energy conversion field, and now, in his 3-in-1 Super Red mode, he could even absorb the opponent's energy as solar energy. Now, it's my turn. Super Red Zinnian, a construct of crimson energy, grasped the golden spear in one hand and clenched his other hand into a fist, striking forward, Super Red mode, a full-force punch. The air exploded, a shockwave erupted. Bang! Darkseid's massive body was sent flying backward, carving a kilometer-long trench in the ground. Before he could even stop, a stream of crimson light passed him at lightning speed, circling behind him. This punch is to repay the Earth for 10,000 years ago, the young man whispered. Darkseid, horrified and furious, tried to twist his back, turning back to strike back, but the crimson fist had already struck his back. Bang! Darkseid flew backward again, his speed leaving a shadow behind, breaking the sound barrier and carrying a gust of wind. The crimson youth continued to pursue him. This punch is for Kara. Zinnian struck out again, his crimson fist transformed into a stream of lightning, rising upward. This punch struck Darkseid's abdomen, sending him tens of thousands of meters into the sky above Apocalypse. The youth, a crimson figure, continued to pursue. Whoosh! A strong wind surged, reaching the night sky close to the universe. Die! Darkseid roared in anger, his armor, including his helmet, completely intact. His eyes blazed with destructive Omega rays, striking the pursuing crimson youth squarely. However, Super Red Zinnian showed no reaction, and the Omega rays simply pierced through his empty chest. Impossible. Darkseid couldn't believe it. The Omega rays were ineffective. What's impossible? Super Red Zinnian shook his head. You think you can hurt me with the energy I've penetrated and cracked? After incorporating the power of the Mother Box, Apocalypse, in Super Red mode, there was no longer any distinction between soul, energy, and body. Everything was a chaotic mess. He could be magical, a program, or an energy form. No energy of any nature perceived by Super Red Zinnian could actually harm him in his current state. This punch is to repay my aunt who was once so frightened. Zinnian called it a punch, but in reality, he brought his hands down with both hands, hammering down hard on Darkseid's head. Crack! Darkseid's helmet exploded completely. His eyes rolled back, and his massive body, like a human-shaped meteorite, plummeted through the atmosphere at an incredible speed. Bang! Witnessed by Cyborg and Batman, a dark figure plummeted to the earth, and the entire planet of Apocalypse shook slightly. The already devastated battlefield collapsed completely, creating a bottomless chasm of molten lava 2 kilometers in diameter. Swoosh! A stream of crimson light descended from the sky, transforming into the figure of a young man. Standing 100 meters above the pit, he gazed calmly down. Get up and continue. I know you're still alive. With his words, the earth trembled as a burly, gray figure leaped from the lava. Landing on the edge of the abyss, Darkseid, the Dark Lord, was no longer as majestic and commanding as he had been a moment ago. Only a sliver of his armor remained, and blood stained his body. His bald head was slightly sunken, bearing the distinct marks of his fists. He looked utterly disheveled. For Darkseid, this was truly an unprecedented humiliation. I have to admit, you're indeed stronger now. Darkseid, bleeding, looked up at the crimson youth and said in a deep voice, I must admit, in this universe, you're the strongest. As a lower-level projection, Darkseid's strength was naturally at the maximum limit allowed by the current universe. But the opponent, a mere local, was top-notch in all aspects and had no weaknesses, clearly exceeding that limit. It was simply a bug. Chapter 436 Super Red Mode, Fight all enemies. I, Darkseid, wish to call you the strongest. On the battlefield of Apocalypse, the Dark Lord stood before the abyssal caverns and addressed a crimson-faced Zinnian, who stood 100 meters in the sky. Upon hearing these words, the Apocalyptian demons and guards froze in their tracks, their faces filled with disbelief. The invincible Dark Lord, who reigned supreme over the universe, actually admitted his inferiority. Beyond the battlefield, behind a walled bunker, Cyborg and Batman could barely contain their excitement. They hadn't expected Zinnian to be so powerful, to have so easily defeated Darkseid. So you're admitting defeat? Zinnian, in Super Crimson mode, raised an eyebrow. He was a man-made form of crimson energy, a creature brimming with chaos and immense power, his very existence a nefarious aberration. There's no such word as surrender in my vocabulary, Darkseid said. As is. It wasn't an Omega Ray. A figure swirled in golden lightning burst onto the battlefield, arriving in an instant and swiftly coming to a stop beside Darkseid's left arm. The young man was clad in red metal armor, a golden lightning symbol adorning his chest. The armor's surface shimmered with crackling lightning as he paused. The Flash. Barry. Outside the battlefield, Cyborg and Batman exchanged a startled glance at the armored young man. Since their team's invasion of Apokolips, they've been quickly scattered across the planet. This was the first time they'd seen the Flash since their separation. And he was clearly in a strange state. The Flash, a member of the Justice League, stood at Darkseid's left shoulder, his eyes glowing an eerie, dark red, as he confronted Super Red's Nian. Then, swoosh! Two sharp, air-piercing sounds echoed through the air, and two towering figures, one black and one blue, fluttered in the air, descending from the sky to stand at Darkseid's left and right shoulders. The former wore a dark, tight-fitting combat suit, a chest emblazoned with an S similar to Super Red's Nian's. His face was righteous and imposing, his muscles bulging with molten iron. However, his eyes were dark, devoid of any emotion. Superman! Cyborg exclaimed from outside the battlefield. Wasn't that Clark Superman, the Justice League's greatest ace? But now, instead of the warmth and reassurance he once brought, Superman exuded a chilling, menacing aura. And Martian Manhunter. Batman added gravely. Indeed, appearing alongside Superman on the Apokolips battlefield was the Martian Manhunter, a towering figure with green skin. In some ways, his abilities and physical prowess were even more formidable and versatile than Superman's. If it weren't for his fear of fire, which was severely limited by Apokolips' numerous engine craters, erupting everywhere, Martian Manhunter wouldn't have been so easily overwhelmed by the demon-like army. But now, Martian Manhunter ignored the nearby flames, standing like a towering, cold alien statue beside Darkseid. Superman, the Flash, Martian Manhunter, the Justice League's top fighters arrived one after another, but they all sided with Darkseid. This made Batman's face pale. "Where are Zatanna and Arthur?" Cyborg said with difficulty. With these two heroes and Supergirl, who had just been teleported away, the Justice League was complete to attack Apokolips. But then, a pleasant, low female voice rang out, "I'm here." Batman and Cyborg turned together to see a tattered magic cat tumbling to their shelter. The voice came from within the hat. The magic cat came to a stop on the ground, its brim pointed skyward, and a pair of black boots protruded from it. Then, a pair of slender, exquisite legs clad in fishnet stockings, a slim waist and a towering chest wrapped in a magic top uniform, appeared. The hostess of the magic cat planted her feet on the ground, her waist lifted up with great resilience and strength, pulling out her black hair, revealing a beautiful face with a pale face. "Zatanna, you're okay." Cyborg opened his eyes wide in surprise. "I was just lucky to escape." Zatanna picked up the broken magic hat on the ground, brushed off the dust, and said weakly, "Did you see Aquaman Arthur?" Batman asked. He had a foreboding feeling in his heart. "He's dead." Zatanna sighed. "He died right in front of me." "What did you say?" Cyborg and Batman obviously found it hard to accept, but they also knew that Zatanna would never joke. "Irony, you are speaking irony, right? After all, you are an irony magician." Cyborg was still trying to find an excuse to escape. "That's paradox, not irony." Zatanna knew it was cruel, but she still stated it as information. It was Darkseid who took Aquaman Arthur's trident and pierced his chest, pinning him to the ground. As for the other members, most of them were controlled by Darkseid. "But you should already know this." Zatanna raised her beautiful purple eyes and looked at the battlefield on Apokolips. What had originally been a one-on-one confrontation had become a four-on-one confrontation. That was Darkseid, plus half of the Justice League, or rather, the entire Justice League's top combat power. As a mage, you should be able to break this kind of control, right? Batman quickly put away his sadness and looked into Zatanna's eyes solemnly. "Bruce, I know what you're trying to say." Zatanna sighed helplessly. "If it were ordinary magic or telepathy, I could easily break it with inversion. But when I tried to break the control over Superman and the others, I found it had no effect. Darkseid possesses a very special, mysterious power of manipulation. I have a feeling that if I hadn't fled the scene in time, I'd be controlled by him now, on Darkseid's side. I'm also very weak now, unable to try again." The intelligence Zatanna brought undoubtedly brought Cyborg and Batman to their lowest point. Batman clenched his fists and said, "If that's the case, There's nothing we can do about it. Now, we're all relying on him." Cyborg raised his eyes and continued to gaze at the battlefield on Apocalypse. "Yes," Zatanna nodded, her eyes complex as she gazed at the silhouette of the Crimson Youth in the distant sky above the battlefield. 3 years had passed since they last met. Zatanna was still overjoyed at Nian's resurrection. She had never expected to meet him again, and she felt the weight of everything on him. "Is that your trump card?" Super Red Nian looked down at Darkseid, surrounded by the 3 members of the Justice League. "I understand. I'll take your head, right now." Super Red Nian wasn't angry either. His words were calm, a crimson flame dancing in his eyes. Chapter 437 The End, the Day of Destruction of the Earth. "Go, kill him," Darkseid declared gravely, handing his golden dagger to the darkened Flash beside him. Though it was a dagger, it was made specifically for the towering Darkseid. To the smaller Flash, Barry, it resembled a sharp golden rapier, its grooves pulsing with terrifying energy. At Darkseid's command, the Flash, wielding the energy rapier, was enveloped in a whirring halo of lightning. In a flash, he vanished from the scene. His speed was so great that even the visible lightning was merely a fleeting trace. 2 powerful storms erupted on the surface. Darkened Superman and darkened Martian Manhunter moved simultaneously, easily breaking the sound barrier. They transformed into 2 tiny shadows, darting towards Super Red Nian at high speed. Super Red Nian, however, remained focused on Darkseid, who was standing below him. The moment Superman and Martian Manhunter rushed in front of him, there was a buzzing sound, a sonic boom, and Super Red Nian's figure vanished into thin air 100 meters high. "It's the power of the Mother Box," Darkseid realized with a startled jolt. He turned around and saw a crimson figure appear with the sonic boom. A crimson right hand shot out from the boom like lightning. Despite its small size compared to Darkseid's massive frame, it gripped Darkseid's neck and lifted him off the ground. Darkseid's eyes widened in shock and anger. He used both hands to pry open the opponent's fingers, only to discover that the crimson hand was harder than the hardest metal in the universe, and its strength was many times greater than in the previous battle. "I rarely feel the urge to kill someone so much. Darkseid, you are one of the few. You can die now." The Crimson Youth floated in the air near the ground, one hand still grasping the opponent's neck. His crimson right hand clenched into the air, and the crimson energy surging within him condensed into a sword. The sword's shape was identical to the Vulcan sword, but it glowed a crimson red. Zzz! This sword was formed from a terrifying fusion of energy, transformed into Omega rays. It could be said to be the Omega Effect sword. "A mere human from Earth," Darkseid growled, his eyes blazing with Omega rays. He knew full well that if struck by this sword, he would be dead. Darkseid understood the power of the Omega Effect better than anyone else. Unless he was in his true form, there was no way he could ignore it like the other man had. The moment the Omega Effect sword formed in his hand, Super Red Nian was about to raise his right hand when 2 towering figures rapidly approached from behind him. Bang! Crack! Superman caught up and pinned Super Red Nian's right arm. Martian Manhunter appeared at his side, using both hands to help Darkseid pry his left hand free. A golden lightning figure, the sharp edge of an energy dagger in front, passed by Darkseid and pierced Super Red Nian's eye socket. Cyborg, Batman, and even Zatanna, watching the battle from the sidelines, couldn't see clearly. Everything happened in a flash. The Flash's black eyes instinctively flashed with fear. He rushed past Darkseid at breakneck speed, rapier in hand, stabbing the Scarlet Youth in the eye socket. Despite his speed, the opponent's golden red eyes glanced at him slightly sideways. Facing a 3-man attack, Nian in Super Red mode suddenly stomped his right foot down. He was only stepping on the air half a meter above the ground, but it felt like stepping on an invisible floor. Bang! Crimson shockwaves and streams of lightning erupted from Nian, shattering the ground below. The Flash, sword and body, were sent flying backwards. Superman and Martian Manhunter's capes were torn by the Scarlet, but he still relied on his strong physique to stand firm beside Super Red Nian. Super Red Nian ignored the 2 men standing at the top of Earth's extraordinary power. Crack! Darkseid was shocked to discover that, even with Martian Manhunter's help, he had only managed to pry open one of the man's fingers. The remaining 4 would be difficult to free in a short time. As for the young man's right hand, which Superman had pinned down, the one holding the Omega Effect sword slowly but firmly rose. "I said, I'll kill you right now." Even with Superman and Martian Manhunter's combined efforts to stop him, Super Red Zinnian still slowly swung the Omega Effect Sword down. No. Darkseid cried out. The Scarlet Omega Effect Sword continued to fall mercilessly. With a swish, blood splattered as a strong, cold, gray left arm descended. The Omega Effect Sword pierced Darkseid's left shoulder, becoming lodged in the center of his body, nearly severing Darkseid diagonally in two. Super Red Zinnian frowned slightly. It wasn't that he was holding back, but rather that Superman had mobilized his full metaphysical force field, and Martian Manhunter had also used a surge of powerful energy to restrain his right hand holding the Omega Effect Sword. Not dead, I'm not dead yet. Darkseid cried, coughing up blood. Do you think you can still live? Super Red Zinnian's face remained expressionless. Scarlet electricity surged from his body, corroding the opponent's body. It was only a matter of time before he was killed. Darkseid's face grew increasingly cold and terrifying, his eyes gleaming with a terrifying red light. Even if I lose, even if I die, it doesn't mean you can win. Super Red Zinnian felt a strong sense of unease. He suddenly sensed that the number of demon-like demons on Apokolips had dropped significantly. Although he had just arrived on Apokolips and killed over 100,000 demon-like demons, that was only 1/5 of the total number of demon-like demons on Apokolips. And now, there are less than a few tens of thousands of demon-like creatures left on Apokolips. Have you noticed? Darkseid said, coughing up blood. Guess where all those half-doomsday, half-demon-like creatures went? It's bad. Outside the battlefield, Zatanna's face changed drastically. Darkseid has teleported hundreds of thousands of demon-like creatures to Earth. Home. Hundreds of thousands. Cyborg and Batman, both experienced the world, couldn't help but gasp. They knew exactly what that meant. Meanwhile, on Earth, in New York, the entire city was in a state of panic, with many streets shattered in an instant. Iron Man was using a full-power laser beam to kill a winged monster, but was hammered down to the ground by 2 or 3 winged monsters from the air. Iron Man looked around, horrified to find that the streets and alleys were filled with the hideous figures of winged monsters. These winged monsters had not only appeared out of nowhere in New York City, but were also incredibly powerful. Friday, how many of these monsters are there? Iron Man asked, his scalp tingling. The second-generation AI, Friday, quickly chimed in with a female voice. However, the usually pleasant female voice sounded incredibly harsh to Iron Man. Tony Stark. Satellite images show that there are at least 10,000 of these monsters in New York alone. Meanwhile, these monsters have also appeared around the world. Currently, many small nations are rapidly being destroyed. Say that again. Iron Man felt a wave of despair. This wasn't like the previous battle in New York, where each of these monsters could have served as a villainous boss in their previous minor supernatural encounters. Now, these flying monsters, barely weaker than the Hulk, numbered in the tens or hundreds of thousands. Today might be the end of Earth. Chapter 438. Half of the Earth's humanity died. The sky and the earth, the mountains and the ocean, were filled with powerful and ferocious giant winged monsters. Peace on Earth was shattered in an instant. On this day, humanity was truly dominated by aliens and terror. In the streets of downtown New York, skyscrapers collapsed, planes were shot down from the sky, ships in New York Harbor were thrown into the city, the head of the goddess was ripped off, and Times Square was reduced to ruins. Every second, countless lives were lost. Just as Iron Man was lost in thought, a familiar voice reached his ears. Mr. Stark, help me. Iron Man quickly glanced over and saw the young man in the Spider-Man suit, grasped by a winged monster, ready to crush him alive. Damn it, let him go. Iron Man's eyes instantly turned red. The engines of his nanosuit braked, and he tried to fly over to provide support, but he was entangled by 2 or 3 winged monsters. New York Square. Ant-Man, enlarged to dozens of times his human size, a humanoid giant, repeatedly swatted away the mid-air demons with his hands and trampled the plaza with his massive feet. Ant-Man and the Wasp, now ant-sized and capable of flight, assisted him. However, even with their increased size, they were unable to defeat these formidable doomsday gene-bearing demons. The demons, swatted and crushed into the earth, quickly rose like immortal hellish demons and pushed Ant-Man's enlarged body down. Scott! The Wasp cried out in surprise, but a demon latched onto the ant-sized Ant-Man and, with speed unmatched by her bloated bulk, pursued her relentlessly. At the new SHIELD headquarters, a demon forced its way through a window into a top-floor office, only to be blasted away by a powerful, invisible shockwave, crushing the glass and steel into dust. The demon-like creature, its skin peeling off and blood-drenched, stood in the opposite building, seemingly only slightly injured, its gaze cold and alert towards the office. Inside, a dark blonde woman in a black agent uniform stood, her fists clenched, her aura as imposing as a queen. Behind her stood a one-eyed black man in a black trench coat and a female agent with a ponytail and a loaded pistol. Even Sky's shockwave can't kill these monsters. SHIELD. Director Nick Fury's single eye betrayed fear. Director, what should we do now? Deputy Agent Hill took a deep breath and asked solemnly. Nick Fury fell silent. If there were only a few hundred, a few thousand, or even 10 or 20,000, there might be a way to deal with them. But right now, these demon-like creatures, capable of flight, possessing physiques capable of withstanding only minor injuries from shockwaves, and possessing astonishing strength, numbered in the hundreds of thousands. In the face of absolute power and might, all tactics and schemes seem powerless. This is a catastrophe. Nick Fury fished out an alien communicator from his windbreaker pocket, one he had been carrying for 20 years. At this moment, Nick Fury finally pressed the call button, a button he hadn't pressed even during the Battle of New York. But Nick Fury knew full well that even if the enemy returned to Earth now, it would be too late. How long could Earth and humanity withstand such a catastrophic invasion? A day? Half a day? An hour? Perhaps even 10 minutes. Is Earth going to end today? Nick Fury muttered to himself, a figure suddenly appearing in his mind, hailed as Earth's most powerful being. Is the Silver God also fighting now? The Sanctuary of New York. Stephen Strange stood before the sanctuary's door, his hands aglow with golden sigils. With a wave of his hands, any demon-like creatures approaching the sanctuary were sent flying back. But the result was a rapid depletion of his mana and stamina, leaving him sweating and pale. Where the hell did the Sorcerer Supreme go? Strange sighed inwardly. He had just been struck down by Thanos' forces. Upon regaining consciousness, he found himself back in the sanctuary, only his time stone necklace was missing. With his current abilities, he could only barely hold the New York sanctuary. Protecting the entire Earth was beyond his reach. New York, Future Chronicles Corporation headquarters. This area was far more tolerant than the other invaded urban areas. Several figures confronted the descending hordes of demonoids, several of which were instantly decapitated, their hideous heads tumbling across the street. Spider-Woman Gwen and Invisible Woman Susan, respectively, used their specialized webs and energy fields to restrain the numerous Doomsday Gene demonoids. Then, wielding the Vulcan sword, Wonder Woman decapitated them with a single, swift and graceful strike. Polaris Lorna also manipulated her vibranium blade with metal control, finishing off the restricted demonoids. The four of them worked in perfect harmony, like a massive Doomsday demonoid harvester. However, this also resulted in an increasing number of invading demonoids flocking here. Initially a few dozen, they quickly swelled to hundreds, then thousands. Most of New York's demonoids were converging on this spot. Wonder Woman Diana was forced to cross her arms, her protective silver bracelets blazing with golden light. The divine blast sent many demonoids flying, only to be quickly replaced by the nearly endless stream of demonoids from behind. Green magnetic tides and blue force fields erupted in quick succession, yet the demonoids continued to intensify. Enemies surrounded her from all sides. Furious, Wonder Woman swung her golden lasso of truth with her left hand, instantly binding over a dozen demonoids. Her magnificent white hair flowed freely as her golden sword decapitated a dozen heads, like a true mythical god of war. Miss Diana, this isn't a solution, Spider-Woman Gwen gasped. If they continued fighting like this, their strength would eventually be exhausted. While they could then retreat to the devouring universe, Earth would be completely destroyed. Hold on a little longer, trust him. Wonder Woman said gravely. She could guess that Earth was just a pseudo-battleground, the real battle must be on Nian's side. But then, puff. Two demon-like creatures broke through the protective shields and magnetic field, their wings flapping with a whirlwind of explosive force as they charged towards Polaris and Invisible Woman, two of the four, as if aware that their physical strength was far inferior to the others. Lorna, Susan, Wonder Woman and Spider-Woman tried to defend them, but it was too late. The demon-like creatures were incredibly fast, their sharp fingernails like bayonets. In the nick of time, a petite figure flew down from the top floor of Future Chronicles headquarters at breakneck speed, shielding Susan from the demon-like blows with her own body. The Doomsday Gene-like demon's ferocious claws could easily shred steel, slamming down on its opponent without a scratch. The petite, mysterious being's gleaming metallic luster shone against the sunlight. She raised her eyes, brimming with human wisdom. Beneath her silver hair, as shimmering as mercury, they suddenly blazed with two lasers, sending the approaching demon flying 1,000 meters away. At the same time, another petite figure appeared out of thin air beside Polaris Lorna. A chaotic crimson surged through her body, igniting the attacking demon while still in midair, incinerating it into nothingness. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 439, The Seventh Permanent Ability. Goodbye. Gwen was stunned. Looking at the crimson-tinged red-haired girl, she exclaimed in surprise, "Wanda." "Sorry, everyone, I did something wrong." Wanda, the dress-clad red-haired girl, came to the rescue, her face etched with guilt. Polaris's Lorna was also taken aback when she saw Wanda, but then she smiled brightly. "It's okay. After all, you're my sister. No matter what happens, I'll forgive you." Thank you, sister." Wanda stepped forward and took Lorna's hand. "Who are you?" Susan looked curiously at the girl next to her who had blocked an attack for her. She knew Wanda, but she had never seen the girl before. She had a petite, perfect figure, a delicate and lovely face, as if she had stepped out of a fairy tale. She wore a floral dress, but the metallic sheen was a contrasting effect, and her hair was a beautiful, shimmering silver. "Wait, are you?" Polaris's gaze fell on the metallic girl, and her rosy lips parted slightly. She was all too familiar with her, after all, she had had a hand in designing her form and structure. "Good afternoon, everyone. Long time no see. Miss Diana, Miss Gwen, Miss Susan, Miss Lorna, and little Wanda." The metal girl's voice was pleasant, crisp, and polite. "Alice, she's Alice." Wanda's eyes shone crimson, seeing the essence of many things, and even the metal girl's soul, a unique spirit imbued with the aura of her master in the mind gem. "Everyone, there will be many opportunities to meet me in the future. For now, let's focus on the invading monsters," Alice said quickly. "According to my statistics, at least 50 countries have been destroyed, and nearly half of the human population has perished. In just a few minutes." Everyone in the Destiny Alliance was furious. In just a few minutes, almost half of humanity had perished in the catastrophe. The demon-like army had appeared so suddenly, and they were invading simultaneously around the world. Each demon-like creature was a small natural disaster. What they didn't know was that among those who perished was a superhero. In New York City. Patton. Black Widow screamed in despair, watching a secret agent, quiver on his back and longbow in hand, being slammed into the ground by a genie. In Wakanda. Your Majesty. Brother. Princess Shuri's eyes welled with tears as she watched the Black Panther man, even in his vibranium-clad Black Panther suit, beset and deformed by several genies. In a small western town. Harley. Poison Ivy stared blankly ahead, her beautiful eyes vacillating. A twin-tailed woman, pierced through the back by a genie's claws, coughed up blood and laughed maniacally, turning back to fire a rifle at the genie. Die? King Shark's eyes flashed crimson, and like a wild beast, he lunged forward, tearing into the genie's neck with his bloody mouth. Queens, New York. Peter. Are you okay? Iron Man quickly pulled Spider-Man away from the swarm of Doomsday genies, only to find his body limp and unresponsive to his calls. Blood flowed from within the Spider-Man suit. Peter. Iron Man froze, airborne, struck down from behind by a demon-like creature. Cities were falling, human tragedy unfolding everywhere, and even extraordinary heroes and villains alike were not immune. Apocalypse. In the center of the battle. I told you, even if you can defeat me, even if you kill me, you cannot achieve ultimate victory. This is the consequence of opposing Darkseid. Darkseid's body was drenched in blood, his body split in half by the Scarlet Sword. If Superman and Martian Manhunter hadn't attacked at the same time, he would have been cleaved in two by Super Red Nian. Super Red Nian's right hand, gripping the sword, exerted constant force. Despite the resistance of Superman's stance and energy shield, he managed to push the Scarlet Sword even further into his body. Even if you can kill me, by the time you return, Earth and the people you love will no longer exist, Darkseid said gravely. Upon hearing this, Super Red Zinnian's eyes finally wavered for a moment. Now, Darkseid was overjoyed, his eyes gleaming with a majestic and mysterious white light as he met the approaching Zinnian's gaze. At that moment, the golden red eyes of Super Red Zinnian seemed to be tinged with a mysterious substance. Indeed, Darkseid had never intended simply to drag the earth down with him. He had been waiting for this moment to arrive, attempting to sway Zinnian's mind and control him. If he could control him, just as he controlled Superman, not only would he be immortal, but the entire universe would be at his fingertips. You will be my strongest force. Darkseid ignored his torn body, his eyes gleaming with white light as he began to fully infiltrate Zinnian's mind. Outside the battlefield, oh no. Darkseid is trying to use that strange power to control Zinnian. Zatanna cried anxiously. What? Cyborg and Batman were shocked. They knew that Darkseid's mysterious control could easily control even Superman, and even Zatanna struggled to dispel it with magic. We have to stop him. Batman was just standing when a hurricane suddenly erupted overhead. Several demon-like creatures had spotted them. The white light in Darkseid's eyes was incredibly powerful, like electricity, connecting with Super Red Zinnian's. He felt he had succeeded. No living being in this universe could escape his control. After all, he was using that power. Even if it was incomplete, just a fragment, it was enough to control any creature in the universe. But Super Red Zinnian suddenly looked at him coldly and said, "What are you doing? You." Darkseid was completely stunned. Why aren't you controlled? At that moment, he couldn't understand. How could the other party be immune to control? No matter how powerful their psychic abilities were, they couldn't escape his control. Super Red Zinnian ignored them. At that moment, he knew the only way out of this crisis, the Infinity Stones. However, without the artifact to control the stones, even in Super Red mode, it was impossible to control multiple stones simultaneously. Besides, he had destroyed one of the original 6 Infinity Stones. Without one, the Infinity Stones could not exert their full power. As he was thinking quickly about this, Super Red Zinnian suddenly closed his eyes. He had a strange feeling. You. Under Darkseid's astonished gaze, Super Red Zinnian suddenly loosened his grip on the Omega Effect sword. His right hand slowly raised up, and with a dreamy red light flashing, a metal glove solidified and was worn on his right hand. It was a metal glove with 6 grooves on it. Super Red Zinnian continued to use the Dimension Ring, and the 5 Infinity Stones originally stored in the devouring dimension, space, time, power, reality, and mind, appeared and automatically flew into 5 of the grooves. There's only one slot left, the one that should have been the Soul Gem storage location, but it had long been destroyed by the Crimson Power. Super Red Zinnian appeared incredibly calm. His gaze fell on the groove in the glove, and a dreamy light surged again. A hint of orange light emanated from the air, and surging cosmic energy surged, forming an orange gem. The Soul Gem. Creation. Darkseid exclaimed in disbelief. He could sense that neither the glove nor the power gem had been taken from elsewhere, but rather fabricated from fantasy into reality. So, this is the 7th permanent ability. A flash of understanding flashed in Super Red Zinnian's eyes. This was the ability Wanda had bestowed upon him, creation. Any object Zinnian had seen, knew of its existence, believed in its reality, could be recreated from fantasy. This was also the 7th permanent ability, acquired since Zinnian acquired Spider Sense, Man of Steel, Divine Immortality, Death Eye, Emotional Control, and the Imperial Domain. The 6th, reshaped Soul Gem was slotted into the final slot. A stream of colorful electricity emanated from the golden glove, surging across Super Red Mode Zinnian's body. At that moment, Super Red Zinnian saw the profound meaning of the universe and felt he could grant any wish. The Infinity Gauntlet, containing all 6 Infinity Stones, was truly the universe's most powerful strategic weapon. Of course, Super Red Zinnian also felt the price. To fulfill a wish and overturn the universe, there was a price to pay. Even if one's body was strong enough to withstand the side effects of using the Infinity Gauntlet, there was still a deeper, greater price to pay, one related to cause and effect. Even so, it doesn't matter, Super Red Zinnian smiled calmly, his mind racing with images. Darkseid, goodbye, Super Red Zinnian said softly, grasping the gauntlet encrusted with all 6 Infinity Stones and snapping his fingers. I know, Darkseid suddenly shouted, staring intently at Nian. I know why I haven't controlled you. Because that thing is within you. It's such a simple truth. How come I'm only figuring it out now? You've already swallowed up all the insights I gained? He was filled with grief and indignation, looking as if he was ready to eat someone. Super Red Nian ignored Darkseid's words. His face expressionless, he softly but powerfully snapped his right fingers. I am the god. Never mind. I am just Nian Prince. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a snap. The snap echoed, and everything was enveloped in the white light emanating from the Infinity Gauntlet. Earth, New York. Iron Man lay on the ground, cradling Spider-Man's body, watching as the demons surrounded him. In the next instant, the powerful demons turned to ash and vanished. Friday, what happened? Tony Stark asked with difficulty. The artificial intelligence Friday quickly replied, Sir, the invading winged monsters are disappearing. Not just in New York City, but all over the planet. SHIELD headquarters. As the headquarters building crumbled, Nick Fury watched the demons vanish into dust and ash beside him. He whispered heartfeltly, It seems Earth has survived this catastrophe. With these words, he collapsed, a bloody hole in his chest. In the open space in the Future Chronicle headquarters, Alice watched as numerous demons and their corpses vanished into dust. Everyone, the demons have vanished from the entire world. It was the young master, Wanda blurted out. Well, he must have succeeded. Wonder Woman Diana smiled knowingly, raising her beautiful eyes to gaze at the sun peeking out from behind the dark clouds. I knew you could do it, she muttered, wondering how to reward him when he returned. Please vote for next month. Chapter 440, End of Volume. See you again if fate permits. This war came and went quickly. Like winged monsters from hell, they descended en masse without warning and vanished without warning, reduced to ashes. This brutal, global catastrophe wiped out over half of Earth's population. Many small nations perished, countless cities were reduced to ruins, and Earth looked as if it were doomsday. According to preliminary estimates, nearly 3.5 billion people perished in this alien invasion. The dead superheroes included, but were not limited to, Black Panther, Spider-Man, Ant-Man, the Wasp, Hawkeye, Aquaman, Mr. Fantastic, the Human Torch, and the Thing. As for the villains, who cared? Anyway, Gotham City's Arkham Asylum was engulfed in flames. This event was later dubbed the Flash, meaning a terrifying catastrophe as fast as lightning. It would go on to become the most brutal invasion in human history. 3 days later. In a suburban villa in Washington, D.C., the first and second floors were filled with people, well, all women. Wonder Woman Diana, Spider-Girl Gwen, Lorna Polaris, Invisible Woman Susan, Shockwave Sky, and Atlantean Empress Mara, most of the current members of the Destiny Alliance were present. Supergirl Kara had also emerged from the elemental dimension. Also arriving upon hearing the news was Superman Clark's wife, Lois Lane, sporting a noticeably bulging belly. Everyone, we've just finished a rescue operation following a disaster. Let's have something to drink first. Alice, dressed in a maid's dress, emerged carrying a tray of steaming coffee. She had used her powers to transform her appearance, revealing her vibranium form. Her movements were mechanical, resembling the exquisitely perfect silver-haired girl. I believe the young master will be alright, Wanda whispered, also emerging with a tray and offering Lois a glass of nutritious fresh milk. Thank you. Lois looked visibly haggard, her thin face tinged with paleness. Clearly concerned about Superman's condition, her hand subconsciously caressed her belly. Kara, standing by, took it for her sister-in-law, Lois. She had already changed out of her original Superman suit and was wearing a simple sky blue dress. With the physique of a Kryptonian Superman, she healed her injuries by basking in the sun. Lois, my cousin will be fine. Nian will definitely bring him back, Kara said softly. I hope so. Lois nodded. That stupid little brother. Since we won the war, why didn't he come back? Lorna grumbled, crossing her arms and changing into a men's suit. Lorna looked at her sister. Wanda, even you can't find him. Wanda shook her head. Apocalypse is too far away, and I haven't been there. I don't know the coordinates, and the portal can't reach it. As for the cauldron of all things at the Mage's Temple, I've used it, and it can't detect the young master. Even the dimensional ring can't make contact. This is really irritating. Are we just going to sit here and wait? Lorna was getting a little impatient. She rummaged through her suit pocket, pulled out a lollipop, and was about to unwrap it and pop it into her mouth. Ugh. Lorna covered her mouth uncomfortably and rushed to the bathroom. On the second-floor sofa, Mara and Susan sat next to each other. Their relationship had been close since the Great Era incident, and after joining the Destiny Alliance, they became like sisters. Susan's beautiful eyes were red, obviously she had been crying. The Fantastic Three, who had been guarding Los Angeles, all died in this disaster, including her brother, Johnny Human Torch. Mara held Susan in her arms and whispered soothing words. Wonder Woman Diana, clad in a long white gown, sat dignified in the main seat. Her flawless face, serene, undoubtedly calmed the atmosphere and the crowd. Miss Diana, Gwen, standing beside her, gazed at Diana with a touch of admiration. She knew she was the one most worried about Nian. Gwen herself couldn't hide her own worry, her heart aching. Seeing Diana's calm and serene presence, she felt a slight sense of relief. Diana whispered, "Of course I'm worried about him, but I also believe in him. I believe he'll return safely. That guy, if he doesn't come back, I suggest we stop waiting for him to die." Lorna, having just emerged from the bathroom, began angrily, but before she could finish her words, she covered her mouth and went back inside. From inside, the faint sound of running water and retching could be heard. Lorna, what did she eat? Gwen glanced curiously at the half-open bathroom door. Maybe it's not something bad, Louise suddenly said, stroking her stomach. With these words, the entire second-floor hall of the villa fell silent. Diana's eyes lit up. No way. Kara opened her lips slightly, immediately using her X-ray vision. Mara and Susan shuddered, their attention instantly drawn to her. Alice spoke directly, "Miss Lorna, you've certainly been feeling a bit unstable these past few days." "I'm at least 99% certain." 100%, Kara added, her eyes complex. "Ah, really?" Gwen's eyes were filled with envy. "What are you talking about?" Sky blinked curiously, looking dazed. Suddenly, everyone in the hall was looking at her. A new director of SHIELD? Probably fake. HMPH, something didn't seem right with my lunch today. Polaris. Lorna let out a long breath and walked out of the bathroom, only to see the others in the main hall staring at her. Their expressions ranged from complex to anticipatory, from envy to excitement. "Why are you all looking at me? Is there something on my face?" Lorna asked, puzzled. "Please sit down first, and we'll talk." Diana rose gracefully, offering the nearest seat to Lorna. "What happened?" Lorna asked suspiciously. Without waiting for a response, a humming sound echoed from the courtyard outside the villa, and a semi-transparent space tunnel opened. 7 figures descended from the tunnel into the courtyard, 6 men and 1 woman, a cyborg, a female magician, a green-skinned alien, a man in a Superman suit, a man in a bat armor, a young man in lightning armor, and a black-haired boy who looked the youngest. Most of the people in the villa focused their attention on the black-haired boy. "They're back." The villa erupted in a frenzy. Everyone emerged, Gwen and Kara swiftly throwing themselves into the young man's arms. Then came Susan, Mara, and Sky, followed closely by the sisters Lorna and Wanda. "Calm down. Are you trying to crush me to death?" Nian felt a mixture of joy and pain, his face buried beneath the towering buildings. He finally managed to poke his head out to catch his breath, only to be tucked back down again. Chapter 441, at the end of the volume. See you again if fate allows. A cry of surprise. At the suburban villa, numerous female heroes embraced the young man and collapsed on the lawn. The usually stoic Sky and the domineering Lorna couldn't help but step forward, finally letting out their long-held worries. As for Mara and Susan, who hadn't stepped forward in the grand era last time, they didn't miss the opportunity this time. "Well, I'd better go home first to let my family and girlfriend know I'm safe." Having never witnessed such a transcendental scene, Barry Allen, the Flash, rubbed his nose, greeted the Justice League members nearby, and glanced at the dark-haired boy on the ground. "Nian, please come visit me when you have time. Thanks to you this time." With these words, the Flash transformed into a streak of golden-red lightning, flashing out of the courtyard gate and disappearing from everyone's side in an instant. "I'm leaving too." "Thank you, Nian Prince," Cyborg said gratefully, spreading his mechanical arms and erupting his engines, sending him soaring into the sky. "In that case, I'm leaving too," Martian Manhunter said gently, giving Batman and Nian one last glance before soaring high above the villa. Kara. Clark, with a hint of resignation, looked at the blonde girl, who had rushed towards the boy and ignored him, and couldn't help but smile, as if completely defeated. He leaned over, took Lois's hand with one hand and her waist with the other, and whispered, "Let's go home." "Yes, together." Lois nodded, closed her eyes, and rested her head on his chest. "Bruce, Diana, we're leaving," Clark said, wrapping his wife in his Superman stance and slowly taking off towards Metropolis. "Diana, long time no see." Bruce was still in his batsuit, the dark armor ripped in half, covered in scratches and dust, a look of extreme battle damage. He stepped forward and greeted the only perfect woman in the yard who hadn't rushed towards the boy like the other female heroes. "You're okay." Diana smiled calmly. "It's good you're not dead. This expedition to Apocalypse wasn't well planned." Batman shook his head, then looked at the young man surrounded by the crowd and said slowly, "You've raised a true savior." He was already excellent enough. Diana's lips curled slightly, her demeanor dignified and noble, proud yet polite. "I understand why you left the Justice League," Batman said gravely. He turned, lifting his tattered black cape, and walked towards the courtyard gate with a slightly lonely look. He seemed destined to be with the night. This lively and happy atmosphere was not suitable for him at all. Miss Diana. Finally, Zatanna, the last remaining, took off her hat and bowed respectfully to Diana. "Come on," Diana said, opening her arms and smiling at her. Zatanna was stunned, then couldn't help but step forward and embrace Diana gently. This battle was too brutal for the Justice League. Aquaman was dead, and most of the top fighters were controlled. If it weren't for Nian's timely intervention, the whole team would have been wiped out. On the ground nearby, the grass felt like a natural bed, quite comfortable to lie on, though the pressure from the crowd made it hard for Nian to breathe. "Come on, it's been 3 days since we finished, why are you back so late?" someone asked angrily. Nian quickly replied, "Superman and the others were controlled, and it took a while to release them." "Okay, I forgive you. Get up first." Nian was speechless. He had long since left his super hot mode of fighting heaven and earth. Being pinned down by a group of female heroes, he couldn't resist with ordinary human strength. He could see that Gwen was deliberately suppressing him. "From now on, I'll make you suffer," Nian said fiercely, using his unique spider sense. Gwen blushed, almost steaming, and quickly let go. Nian's hands began to grope around, not caring whose, and he touched anything soft. With several exclamations, the female heroes holding him down finally rose, many of them blushing. Nian finally stood up again. "Master, Master." Wanda and another young woman used their small hands to help him brush the dust off. "You are?" Nian was startled by the familiar silver-haired girl. "I am Alice, Master." The silver-haired girl blinked her sapphire-like eyes and chuckled playfully and tenderly. "So that's how it is," Nian muttered to himself. He had worn the Infinity Gauntlet before, had gained insight into the mysteries of the gems in the universe, and understood that the Mind Stone had revitalized Alice's intelligence. However, the integration with her vibranium body was not perfect, and a key opportunity was needed. Perhaps even Nian could not have imagined that the special spear used by one of Thanos' generals, capable of disrupting the disordered AI program, would just happen to activate Alice. Surrounded by the female heroes of the Destiny Alliance, Nian looked up at the white-haired woman in front of him who had released Zatanna. "And, I'm back," Nian whispered to the woman. "Glad to be back." Diana nodded, a faint smile on her face, and ordered, "Alice, Wanda, prepare dinner." "Yes, Miss." Alice and Wanda responded in unison. Tonight was sure to be an incredibly sumptuous feast. Zatanna had wanted to leave, but Diana persuaded her to stay, enjoying the feast brought together by the Prince family and the Destiny Alliance. The villa was clearly not big enough. Nian and the others moved the dinner to the Devouring Dimension, the headquarters of the Destiny Alliance. At night, the Destiny Alliance headquarters was ablaze with lights. In the grand and luxurious dining room, beneath the gleaming glass lamps, a long table was laden with fine wine and food. More than a dozen people sat around it. For the first time in 3 years, the Devouring Beast King had witnessed such a lively occasion. He was extremely excited, scurrying around the lamp bases, the walls, and under the tables. Everyone who saw him couldn't help but stroke him. "At this scale, I'm afraid they're the #1 force in the universe." Venom muttered to himself as black liquid emanated from Little Emperor's tail and condensed into a head. Nearby, in a window, a glass jar held a dazzling starfish. Even Kunluo's one-eyed form showed wonder. He had long since fallen asleep on Batman's body, only to wake up to find the war over, thanks to the previously deceased Nian who had saved the day. A ripped, dark red cape fluttered to the window, staying with it. The orange cat, Little Emperor, chased after it. It feels so good to be home. Ken Luo's eyes lit up. He glanced at the black-haired boy sitting at the main stage, still in order. Defeating both Thanos and Darkseid is truly remarkable. Nian, observing the harmonious gathering, also smiled with pleasure. This time, it was a true reunion. There's more than just the original family members: Aunt Diana, Maid Wanda, AI housekeeper Alice, pet Little Emperor, symbiote Venom, magical levitation cloak, and starfish Ken Luo. There's also a larger family: childhood sweetheart Gwen, schoolmate Kara, boss Lorna, agent Sky, Empress Mara, invisible woman Susan. This way, no matter how great the karmic cost, it's worth it. Nian, illuminated by the candlelight at the banquet, thought for a moment. Chapter 442, the end of the volume. See you again if fate allows. In the devouring space, Destiny Alliance. Under the dazzling, starlit lights of the headquarters cafeteria, all current members of Destiny Alliance, along with Supergirl Kara and Zatanna, filled a single table. Wanda and Alice continuously presented delicious food and fine wines. The joyful atmosphere was like that of a large family. The lively and joyful scene dispelled the recent haze in everyone's hearts, washing away some of the despair and sadness brought on by the Flash incident. Nian. Gwen stealthily glanced at Nian, seated at the head table. Their spider sensically connected. Noticing this, Susan muttered softly, "That unique way of communicating between the two of you is ridiculous." "You can become invisible," Mara, sitting next to them, said seriously. "That way, you can't be invisible in any setting, and others won't notice. Not in public." Susan blushed. Even though she was the invisible woman, she still needed a special suit to remain invisible. However, when Nian possessed her ability, she could render herself invisible along with other objects, so theoretically, it was indeed possible. Susan covered her slightly flushed cheeks with her hands. Noticing Mara's half-smile, she couldn't help but clench her fists. "Okay, Mara, you're teasing me, aren't you?" "I'm not." Mara, dignified and noble, her tall figure in a pink dress gracefully seated in a chair, seemed to have transformed herself into the almighty empress of the underwater empire. "You must have done it when he approached you." Susan stared at her intently. "I guess so." Mara's expression finally softened. "What counts?" Yes, no, no." Susan snorted, unable to resist. "He hasn't found me yet. After all, you have a better figure than me, and you're so fair, you look like you could squeeze water out of me. You actually have a great figure, very toned, and your tan is healthy." Mara smiled. "Or, I'll tell him tonight." A flicker of desire crossed Susan's eyes, but she quickly reacted and lightly punched Mara. "You want it yourself, don't sell me out." "At worst, we'll go together," Mara said, her expression a helpless sacrifice for her friend. Susan was stunned. "Are you really the Empress?" The two continued to banter and playfully banter. Nian found this phenomenon quite unusual. The women around him always had a particularly close relationship, like Spider-Woman Gwen and Superwoman Kara, Undersea Queen Mara and Invisible Woman Susan. Wanda and Alice, needless to say, had long served the Prince family together. Perhaps due to their similar temperaments, the arrogant and domineering North Star Lorna would actually exchange a few words with Sky. Sky also enjoyed chatting with Lorna. Perhaps her straightforward nature put her, an agent constantly scheming against external enemies, at ease. Then there was Aunt Diana, who had a very close relationship with Zatanna. Both were clearly intelligent, mature women, their demeanor and conversation elegant and distinguished. These small circles, large and small, also contributed to the overall harmonious atmosphere. Kara. Nian, remembering Gwen's earlier hint, pulled out a silver crown ring. "This is for you. From now on, you can use this to freely enter and exit the Destiny Alliance headquarters." He paused, then continued, "Of course, if you accept this ring, it will also mean that you will become the 9th member of the Destiny Alliance." "Of course I do." Kara smiled brightly, stepped forward to accept the Dimension Ring, and kissed Nian on the cheek. Like Gwen, she had previously served in the Justice League as a trainee hero, ready to quit at any time. Since Nian and Gwen were both here, she naturally joined in. "Kara, congratulations on joining." "Show me the ring," Gwen said with envy. "Senior, you're so fake. You already have one, don't you?" Kara complained, rolling her eyes at Gwen, but still managed a cheerful smile. Alice, this is for you. Nian produced another silver crown ring and handed it to Alice, the silver-haired housekeeper, who was sitting beside the chair. Thank you, master. Alice, lifting the hem of her black and white maid dress, bowed gently and respectfully accepted the ring. She would also be the 10th member of the Destiny Alliance. Little brother. Polaris Lorna excitedly stood up from her chair, raising her glass filled with vodka. Come and have a drink with me. Yes, boss. Nian was about to take over, but before he could finish, the others chorused, no. Huh? Lorna and Nian were both stunned. Why can you drink but I can't? Lorna was shivering with anger, a little frightened. This is because... Gwen and the others didn't know what to say for a moment. Lorna, Diana said, you'd better not drink. I'll tell you the reason later. Okay. Lorna sat down. Diana was one of the few people on the field who could barely hold her own. Sister, I'll help you drink, Wanda stepped forward and whispered. Forget it, I won't drink. Lorna immediately calmed down. Everyone knew now that she was a complete sister complex. Nian, you should drink less too, Diana specifically pointed out. I understand, and... Nian also sat down slumped. Zatanna's eyes were filled with surprise. She could see that Nian was the core of the current alliance, and Diana was the woman behind it. This was probably because, in Nian's heart, Diana was the most important, and no one else could shake her position. Miss Diana, you're amazing, Zatanna whispered to herself, but then, meeting Diana's beautiful eyes, gleaming with intelligence, she instinctively averted her gaze. Dinner was halfway through. Nian noticed a lingering sense of dejection in some people's eyes, especially Susan and Gwen. He thought for a moment, then said, there's no need to grieve over those who perished in the flash incident. I may find a way to bring them here later. With those words, the large and bustling restaurant fell silent. All the female heroes, including Guan Luo, turned their gazes to the young man at the main table. Nian, you said you have a way to resurrect my brother and the others? Susan asked excitedly and incredulously. Yes, I do, but I can't do it right now, Nian nodded, giving a firm answer. Resurrecting so many people? Is that even possible? Gwen was also incredulous, but she still believed Nian. Well, my cousin Peter Parker, he might have a chance to be resurrected someday too. Zatanna's beautiful purple eyes reflected the young man in the main seat, and she murmured to herself, if it were him, it wouldn't be surprising if he could do such a thing. As one of the few people who witnessed a battle on Apocalypse, she knew that the young man was simply the embodiment of miracles. What a pity, she had met him so late. Zatanna was lost in thought, recalling their first encounter in Gotham City and their encounter on the magic stage at the hotel. She suddenly realized that her heart had been occupied by a figure of such excellence. Thinking of this, Zatanna felt a little sorry for Diana. Perhaps this was because of her guilty conscience just now. Chapter 443, End of the volume. See you again. It's 5 days since the Flash incident. Rescue efforts continue around the world, with the wounded being taken to hospitals and makeshift tents. Survivors, swallowing their sorrow, begin rebuilding amidst the ruins. Over half of humanity perished in the alien invasion. Feeling the pain, they grit their teeth, while the remaining half continue to live their lives. This will also mark the desolation of a great era, a watershed for a whole new world, where new order and rules will be reshaped. However, without the threat of Thanos and Darkseid, Earth's humanity will clearly enjoy a hard-earned peace. Within the metaverse, within a microcosmic planet, Supergirl Kara and Nian, shrunk using Pym's technology, entered together and descend into one of the alien cities. Here, unique alien buildings stand in a dark metallic hue, creating a desolate scene, as if long abandoned and decaying. Is this really Kandor? Kara looked at the familiar city's scenery and appearance, a look of disbelief on her face. Kandor, the city originally on Krypton. Yes, it is Kandor, Nian said in a low voice. Brainiac shrunk Kandor and stored it on his ship, making it the only surviving city on Krypton. The only pity is that the Kryptonian inhabitants here are mostly dead, with only a few extremely elderly scientists left. Even so, I'm deeply moved to be able to return to my home city again. Kara's eyes misted over. She took a few steps forward, turned back and looked at Nian affectionately. Thank you, Nian. Rest assured, as long as you're here, Kryptonian civilization will not perish, and will even shine once again in the outside world, Nian said in a low voice. Kara, this is my promise to you. Then you'll have to work hard. Kara blinked. This. Nian thought Kara had misunderstood him. But it didn't matter. Just then, a familiar female voice boomed from behind them. Nian, Kara. Curious, Nian and Kara turned to see a voluptuous woman in a tight, characteristic Kryptonian combat suit, with long, beautiful, snow-white hair. Teacher Felicia. Nian and Kara asked simultaneously, why are you here? In Washington, a half-collapsed flower shop. The proprietress, dressed in a green dress, was cleaning up the mess when a young man's voice suddenly rang through the doorway. Are you still going to keep your shop open? The seductive proprietress shuddered, looking up to see the young man in a trench coat. You're too late. The plants are dead, and there's no point in keeping the shop open, Poison Ivy replied calmly, her eyes dead, as if she had returned to the state she was in 3 years ago. Ever since Harley Quinn and King Shark's deaths in the Flash incident, Poison Ivy felt as if the life she had once been able to live had been completely dead. Nian walked into the shop, picked up the fallen and broken plants, and said softly with confidence, even if they're dead, their bodies and seeds are still here, and they can continue to revive in the future. You mean? Poison Ivy was shocked. I might find a way to revive them in the future, Nian said, standing up. Are you sure? Poison Ivy pressed. Of course, Nian confirmed with a nod. Then I'll trust you again, Poison Ivy said softly after a moment's silence. Nian turned and walked out of the shop. With a flick of his thumb, a ring flew high into the air, tracing a beautiful arc. Poison Ivy caught it accurately in her hand. Poison Ivy saw a small silver crown, gleaming with an eternal brilliance in the sunlight outside. From now on, you will be the 11th member of the Destiny Alliance. Nian returned to the devouring dimension, deep in the headquarters base, in a secret room. 5 gemstones, each blooming in 5 colors, yellow, purple, green, red, and blue, floated in the air, interweaving to form a cosmic map, though a corner was missing. A flawless woman in a white dress sat within the room, the air thick with the scent of violets. Auntie, Nian said, looking at the 5 infinity stones with a hint of resignation. If I could create the soul stone again, I could bring back over half of humanity who have perished. Gather all 6 infinity stones and snap your fingers to grant a wish. Alice. Nian's 7th permanent ability, Imagination Creation, mysteriously vanished after the snap that annihilated the forces of Apocalypse. Along with the Infinity Gauntlet and Soul Stone, the illusionary creations vanished. Perhaps that was one of the punishments for snapping one's fingers? Was the existence of snapping one's fingers destined to come with a price? It's not your fault. You've done well enough. Diana stepped forward, embraced the young man, and whispered, we're a team. Let's work together and we'll definitely be able to solve it in the future. Nian exited the devouring space and returned to the streets of Washington. But at this moment, a dazzling stream of light streaked across the city sky. Nian's spider sense seemed to detect something, and he turned around to see a stream of light falling behind him. You are Nian Prince, right? She was a blonde woman in her 30s, wearing a dark blue uniform with a space theme. Her body was flowing with colorful energy streams. She was very beautiful and outstanding. Her blue eyes shone with a hint of bravery, and a visible heroic aura swept over her. You are. Nian recognized her. He remembered seeing her in an old photo at the home of Supergirl Kara's adoptive parents. Her name seemed to be Carol Danvers. However, she should have died in an Air Force exercise 20 years ago. I'll come find you again. She surveyed Nian from head to toe. The blonde woman had arrived and departed just as quickly, her body surging with multicolored energy before vanishing into the sky like a shooting star. What's she doing here? Nian was bewildered. He turned casually, then froze. He then sped up, dashing down the street. The pedestrian street hadn't been completely rebuilt yet, but as the heart of the city, many passers-by with sad faces were still passing by. Excuse me, please. Nian scurried through the crowd, pushing his way through them with his hands. He could vaguely see the silhouette of a woman holding a small black umbrella in one hand at the corner ahead. As she was about to disappear around the corner, Nian shouted, Sister. Passers-by on the pedestrian street cast him strange glances. Nian ignored them and continued his pursuit. As if hearing a call, the figure paused, then continued his pace, disappearing around the corner. Nian reached the corner of the street, a busy intersection where he could no longer see the familiar figure from earlier. He suddenly looked down and saw an abandoned pirate bear stuffed animal lying on the ground, its patched surface. "Sister, it's you, isn't it?" Nian picked up the bear, a sense of loss before a smile of relief. "We're destined to meet. I believe we'll meet again in the future." As if echoing his words, he said, "Yeah." Tens of thousands of meters above Washington, a black raven flapped its wings, like a black meteor, plummeting towards the city below. Dividing line. P.S. This stage of the story has come to an end, filling in many gaps and opening up many new ones. I wonder what readers think. Please vote for next month's tickets. I'll be sending out a red envelope to the group tomorrow at noon. Readers are welcome to subscribe. Also, the next volume is titled The Multiverse. I hope we'll meet again in the world of American comics. Chapter 444. 5 years later. Another winter, Christmas approached. At nightfall, snow suddenly began to fall, heavy flakes of snow falling from the sky thousands of feet high, blanketing the entire city. Classic Christmas songs blared through the streets of New York. Tech-inspired skyscrapers stood in a row, dazzlingly projected advertisements, and passers-by hurried by, clutching black umbrellas. Christmas songs played, and a rare sight of families strolling hand in hand was witnessed. Passers-by occasionally paused, gazing up at the inky sky, letting the snowflakes fall on their faces, the melted drops trickling down their cheeks. Even the bustling central pedestrian street was devoid of festive cheer. Every resident, like the night sky, seemed weighed down by something, their brows etched with a heavy look. An invisible, gray haze lingered. Looking around, one could see this revitalized, punk-infused metropolis. Every street boasted 2 or 3 large parks, each densely packed with monuments. Hundreds of names were engraved on each monument: Kofi Jonas, Peter Parker, Hoyle Burton. At the bottom of each monument, it was inscribed, "In memory of the victims of the Flash incident." Flowers, still fresh and still in bloom, piled in front of the monuments, evidently visited daily to clean, visit, and pay tribute. Missing person notices were plastered on the display boards in these parks. The numerous black and white notices rustled in the cold winter wind, and finally, with a ripping sound, several of them ripped from the boards, carried by the chill wind and carried high into the city. The Times Square broadcasting tower projected a large video. Beams of light formed images in the cool air, and a beautifully dressed female host said with a look of worry, "This Christmas, the entertainment and tourism industries are as dismal as ever. 5 years have passed since the Flash incident, and it's clear we haven't recovered from that most devastating disaster in human history. Finding loved ones, seeking treatment for mental illness, and other issues remain difficult challenges for modern humanity. Even though technology and living standards have advanced several times compared to 5 years ago, humans remain generally insecure, unhappy, and unwilling to accept reality. So, it's been so long." A flicker of pain crossed the eyes of many passers-by on the street. The sudden invasion disaster 5 years ago claimed at least half of humanity's lives. Every family lost a family member. The impact on the world and society was so immense that recovery would be difficult, not just in 5 years, but even in 10. As a metropolis, New York's rebuilt central streets are relatively well maintained. But in the outer boroughs, many houses lie abandoned and unused. Some small countries and cities are now so desolate and desolate, like dead cities. Some have dubbed this era the post-Flash era. It was now, in the outer boroughs of Queens, New York. Inside a closed room on the 6th floor of a residential building that had been abandoned for 5 years, a blonde girl, about 12 years old, was hiding under a table. Her face was dirty and her clothes were tattered. Her sapphire blue eyes were filled with fear. She sat on the floor, her hands hugging her knees, her small, thin body trembling. Bang, bang. Suddenly, a violent banging sounded against the main door of the room, and then it burst open, revealing several fully armed soldiers. The leading armed captain raised his left hand, scanning the girl inside with a watch on his wrist. When the double-digit number appeared on the instrument, he said, "Yes, she's the one we're looking for." The other soldiers were shocked rather than pleased by their captain's words. They stared at the blonde hiding in the room, their expressions far more fearful and nervous than their own, their hands instinctively clenching their custom-made firearms. The armed captain didn't dare enter the room directly. A look of apprehension etched on his face. He stood outside the doorway and spoke in a slow voice, "Don't be afraid. We're good people," Here to protect you. He leaned forward and gently placed his custom-made pistol on the floor. But then, the blonde suddenly emerged from the table, climbed onto it, and leaped out the open window. Damn it! The armed captain cursed. He had pretended to lower his custom-made rifle, taking the opportunity to approach her, but the girl seemed to understand his intentions. Rushing to the window, he watched the blonde plummet from the 6th floor, only to be caught by a dark figure dangling from a steel cable. The black figure was a young white man with short black hair and a black leotard. A bat totem adorned his chest, his muscular form bulging out from under him. He was tall and slender. He caught the blonde girl with one hand, then, dangling from his bat claws with the other, landed on the rooftop of the house across the street. It's Nightwing. They've got the upper hand again. The armed team leader slammed his fist on the table, looking at the bat-like young man, and said with deep frustration. A nearby team member couldn't help but ask, "Captain, that's a rare superhuman. Are you just giving up? We're military personnel too. There's no reason to be afraid of them. Then can you defeat Nightwing?" The armed team leader glanced at him sideways. "If you can, go for it." "All right, forget it," the team member replied sheepishly. He was just saying it. Fighting a superhero, wouldn't that be tedious? After Nightwing intervened, the armed team decisively withdrew. On the rooftop across the street, the Batman lowered the blonde to the ground and asked, "Kid, are you okay?" The blonde shook her head, took a step back, and stared at him warily. "Oh, I forgot to introduce myself," the Batman said. "My name is Nightwing, and I'm a member of the Junior League." "Junior League?" The blonde blinked curiously. "Yes, it's Kang, a member of the Hero Association, but also a relatively independent superhero team, founded less than a year ago." Nightwing smiled and said, "You have superpowers, right? That's why the military is targeting you. They always do this, semi-forcibly trying to recruit people with superpowers." The blonde glanced back at the window and asked curiously, "Are they afraid of you?" Nightwing raised his head and said, "Superhero teams these days aren't like they used to be. They don't have special rights and benefits. The military doesn't want to stalemate us, that's all." The blonde suddenly raised her left hand. She was wearing a watch on her wrist. When the watch pointed at the Batman, the number 36 popped up. Nightwing smiled when he saw this, and showed a similar new instrument worn on his left hand. "Do you also have a combat power detector? I have the latest model released by Future Chronicle Company, which can more accurately calculate the opponent's extraordinary combat power value from the physical fitness and energy." Of course, it's just as Future Chronicle Company said. Special abilities and ultra-black technology equipment cannot be obtained through instrument scanning, so the scanned combat power value can only be used as a basic numerical reference. Without waiting for Nightwing to finish, the blonde girl had lowered her guard and asked crisply, "Do you want to guide me to join the Junior League?" Nightwing was stunned for a moment, then followed up with, "You are young and have extraordinary abilities. As long as you pass our internal review, you do have the opportunity to join the Junior League." The blonde girl was silent for a moment, then continued, "Does being a member of the Junior League come with a salary?" Nightwing didn't expect a girl to be so realistic, and nodded, "Yes, $3,000 a month." "Then I'll join," the blonde girl said softly. "My name is Jean Grey, and my ability is mind reading." Mind reading. Nightwing was stunned, and then it suddenly dawned on him. "So, you've seen through my thoughts a long time ago." Jean nodded and said, "You're not a bad person. Batman's apprentice, the second-generation Robin." "Robin," Nightwing muttered softly, shaking his head bitterly, "I no longer deserve that title." He whispered, "Let's go, I'll take you to the Junior League headquarters." After Nightwing took Jean Grey off the rooftop. On the rooftop of another nearby high-rise, a man wearing crimson armor with a lightning symbol stood there, watching the entire process unfold. He moved, transforming into a swift flash of electricity, flowing down the wall of the building and appearing in the adjacent street in an instant. But then, another crimson bolt, even faster than him, caught up with him from behind. Two human-shaped bolts, one in front and one behind, streaked across the New York City highway at breakneck speed, weaving through the endless stream of traffic. Zizzle. Barry Allen, the Flash, stopped in a New York alley. His bearded face was filled with resignation. He turned and said, "Jesse, quick, stop chasing me." Zizzle. The crimson bolt stopped before him, revealing a woman in a tight crimson suit, her figure sculpted to the point of curves. Despite her incredibly voluptuous figure, fair skin, and rosy lips, Barry knew she was someone to be reckoned with. The woman's body was tinged with sizzling lightning, and the Flash knew it was a manifestation of the Speed Force. Jesse Quick opened his lips slightly and said, "If you answer my questions properly, I won't bother tracking you." "What do you want to know?" Barry Allen exhaled. "Why are you tracking members of the Junior League?" Jesse Quick asked curiously. "That wasn't stalking, it was benevolent guardianship." Barry Allen spread his hands and said, "Most of the kids in the Junior League are underage. Although they have special superpowers, I'm worried about their safety, that's all." "Okay, that makes sense." Jesse Quick nodded, then asked, "What exactly happened 5 years ago?" Flash Barry Allen was silent. He looked at Jesse Quick and said in a deep voice, "This is what you really want to ask? After all, you are the only heroic member of the Justice League who is still in the public eye." Jesse Quick said quickly, "I want to know what caused the Flash incident 5 years ago, and the whole process of the incident. What exactly are those winged monsters? Why did they collectively turn to ashes and disappear?" Jesse Quick's eyes were sharp. "This must be related to the Justice League. Otherwise, why did you disband 5 years ago? Most of the heroic members no longer appear, and even Batman gradually retreated behind the scenes, cultivating a bunch of so-called successors." Regarding the truth about the Flash incident, Barry Allen, the Flash, gave a wry smile. "It's not that we want to hide it from the public, but in our opinion, not knowing is far better than knowing." "Not knowing is better than knowing." Jesse Quick raised an eyebrow. "Jesse Quick, let me warn you. Don't think possessing the Speed Force makes you invincible. This universe is far more complex and terrifying than you imagine." Barry Allen, the Flash, recalled the moment he was controlled, and the despair he felt was unforgettable to this day. "Was it your Justice League that ultimately resolved the incident?" Jesse Quick demanded. Barry Allen shook his head. "If it had been our Justice League, the Justice League wouldn't have disbanded, and Batman wouldn't have started training his successor." "Who is that?" Jesse Quick asked. "Is it the Silver God?" "The Silver God, the most famous and popular superhero 5 years ago. However, since the Flash incident 5 years ago, his whereabouts have completely disappeared from the world. You'd better not investigate him, or you'll regret it." Barry the Flash said this before vanishing into the streets like a flash of lightning. Jesse Quick stood there for a few seconds before taking a step and, like a flash of lightning, darted off in the opposite direction. 10 seconds later, Jesse Quick returned to her New York City rental apartment. In less than a second, she removed her helmet and tights, changing into a casual, loose-fitting t-shirt, cropped trousers, and slippers. She also made herself a cup of hot coffee. The woman took a sip. She looked younger than she had in her tights, perhaps in her early 20s. A university textbook on human sociology lay on the table beside her. She looked like a college student. Jesse Quick and Liberty Bell, two heroic titles. Her real name was Jessie Chambers. Since the Flash incident, the most popular female hero, bar none. Of course, this was also due to the collective disappearance of famous female heroes like Wonder Woman, Supergirl, Invisible Woman, and Spider-Woman. Many even suspected they had perished. Jessie, her hair tied in a neat ponytail, walked into her room. The wall where her desk sat was covered in a tangled mess of newspapers and pictures. They all depicted the Flash incident. Jessie approached and picked up a photo she had taken long ago of the Silver God. She gazed upon the godlike figure of light towering over the city, a photo she had taken as a young girl. Ever since her father's death 5 years ago, Jessie had been intent on uncovering the truth behind the Flash incident. She wanted to unravel this world's greatest and most terrifying mystery, to gaze directly into the abyss within, and to know the mysterious being that ultimately filled this vast abyss. That would be the ultimate mystery of human sociology. Meanwhile, a being who had never existed suddenly appeared on the streets of New York, as if appearing out of thin air. However, the many passers-by remained unresponsive. He was a young man with tan skin and dark hair. His features were regular, and he stood about 1.8 meters tall, with a well-proportioned and slender figure. He wore an ordinary, gentle, and even slightly elegant dark red windbreaker. He exuded a sense of normalcy, gentleness, and a touch of elegance. "Master, is it really okay to just run out like this without telling anyone?" a young girl asked weakly. "It's okay, just getting some fresh air." The dark-haired young man shrugged, looking at the familiar yet unfamiliar street scene around him with a nonchalant smile. "You're right, Guan Luo. Yes, it's true that I haven't been out for a long time." A spiritual thought emanated from the interlayer of the dark-haired young man's dark red windbreaker. Chapter 445. He went out. In the devouring yuan space, a palace building stood atop the highest peak of a small artificial planet. Waterfalls and rainbows cascaded majestically from the peak, overlooking most of the planet. Within the vast and imposing main hall of the council, a flawless woman wearing a silver crown sat dignifiedly on one of the chairs. Next to the woman's chair, leaning against a silver ancient sword, exquisitely crafted, like an ancient work of art. The gleaming divine light emanating from it left no doubt that it could slay any enemy. Whoosh! As beams of white light descended one after another, a series of beautiful and diverse female figures emerged. They ranged from ornate long dresses to combat uniforms to casual attire, but all wore a uniform silver crown ring on their left hands. The female members appeared out of thin air in the main hall of the council and took their seats at their respective round stone tables. In a moment, 9 female figures took their seats in the 12 chairs surrounding the large, sacred round table, leaving only 3 vacant, including the main seat. Their arrival brought a sudden buzz to the once deserted conference hall. Emergency meeting. It's been a while since we've had one. I remember, more than a while, it's been 3 years. Right. Wait a minute, why isn't he here? Did he call the emergency meeting? Someone raised this question. Immediately, many of the female members looked towards the empty stone chair in the main hall, their beautiful eyes filled with confusion. "I called this meeting," spoke the perfect woman on the stone chair next to the main seat. She had long white hair, a beautiful face untouched by the passage of time, and a calm voice radiating nobility and elegance. Without waiting for anyone else to ask, the perfect woman continued, "He left the devouring dimension and journeyed to the outside world." With these words, the conference hall fell completely silent. "I remember he hasn't been out for over 3 years." A female member whispered softly. Another female member quickly responded, "To be more precise, the young master hasn't been out in the outside world for 3 years, 6 months, and 25 days. Since that incident, he's been out there for a year. Since coming here, he hasn't been out in the outside world again." Someone sighed. The Lorna incident was a huge blow to him. At this point, the atmosphere in the meeting hall grew heavier. If the people in the main seat were present, they would never bring up this matter. "I'm still trying, but there's no leads." "What about you guys?" a member asked. "No." Many members shook their heads, a look of helplessness on their faces. "Actually, it's a good thing he's out," one member said. "Staying in the devouring dimension all the time, that's the real problem." "Did he go out alone?" "No. Alice was with him, and it seems Guan Luo went with him, too." "That's good. Let's wait and see. Alice will contact us if anything happens. Rest assured, everyone. I'll take good care of the young master." "Wanda, hearing you say that is truly reassuring." At this point in the meeting, the perfect woman sitting next to the chair suddenly spoke up. "Besides, there's one more thing." Outside, in New York, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the pedestrian streets like a thick, white blanket. A dark-haired young man strolled the streets like an ordinary passerby, taking in the dazzling spectacle of the city. "This place has changed a lot since before," he muttered softly to himself. A burly black man handing out flyers nearby heard him and said with a smile, "Hey, are you a tourist from out of town?" The dark-haired young man nodded in agreement. The burly black man said, 3 or 4 years ago, the downtown area here underwent a complete reconstruction, so it's naturally changed dramatically. Another big reason is that Future Chronicles headquarters is located right across the street. It's not only significantly boosting the local economy, but has also transformed New York into a true tech capital." The burly black man's face beamed with pride, and he excitedly added, "My son just passed 3 interviews with Future Chronicle and is now an intern. Congratulations." The black-haired young man smiled calmly. He had also noticed that the projection technology developed by Future Chronicle was now prevalent in commercial streets. Furthermore, the streets were often filled with small, white model home medical robots bearing the Future Chronicle logo. After saying goodbye to the burly black man, the black-haired young man suddenly asked, "Alice, is the company doing well now?" After a few seconds of silence, a thumb-sized, silver-haired girl in a dress and uniform emerged from the pocket of the black-haired young man's dark red windbreaker. The silver-haired girl blinked her eyes and said with a look of annoyance, "Master, it's more than good. Future Chronicle is now recognized as the world's leading enterprise. Stark Industries and Wayne Corporation were crushed by us 2 years ago." "So impressive." The black-haired young man shrugged, unfazed. "It's been a long time since you've paid attention to the company's affairs. Now is the time to give you a brief report." The petite silver-haired girl's back-extended silver mechanical wings flew out from the pocket of her dark red windbreaker and flew parallel to the black-haired young man's left shoulder like an elf. Maintaining the original PIM particle technology, she activated the stealth coating technology. Passers-by on the street could not see the mechanical girl flying closely behind the black-haired young man. Alice continued, "Future Chronicle Company currently leads the industry in home robots, network intelligence, holographic projection, genetic medicine, mechanical prosthetics, and nanomodels. We've combined most alien technologies with Earth's current conditions to develop ultra-high-tech products, which are driving technological advancement worldwide. Among them, the most popular products are the combat power detectors and language translators. The combined sales of the 3 generations have reached tens of billions." "Combat power detectors?" The dark-haired young man was stunned. Alice replied, "It's the one you proposed a few years ago. By scanning a creature's physical fitness and internal energy, it quantifies its strength." "Ah, you actually made it." The dark-haired young man was speechless. He had just casually suggested it, thinking of an anime. Unexpectedly, Alice took it seriously. Alice continued, "Also, household robots and mechanical prosthetics are very popular, sparking a social craze. Some people have specifically replaced their limbs with mechanical prosthetics, saying that mechanical ascension is the modern trend. Soldiers from many major countries have also equipped themselves with them." The black-haired young man was completely speechless. Aren't the original target audience for mechanical prosthetics disabled people? It seems that he had set the basic strength value of the mechanical prosthesis too high. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 446, The North Star on the Day of Birth. In fact, just 5 years ago, Future Chronicle, founded just 3 years ago, had already reached parity with Stark Industries and Wayne Industries. Therefore, it's not surprising that, with vast alien resources and technology, and managed by Alice, a special AI, Future Chronicle has surpassed both Stark and Wayne Industries in just 5 years. Even those in the outside world have long since grown accustomed to this. In fact, for many young students, Future Chronicle is an eternal deity. It has created a true legend in just 8 years, single-handedly leading Earth's technological era. Previously, Stark Industries and Wayne Corporation, despite being at the forefront of their industries and possessing many groundbreaking technologies, such as new energy elements, Iron Man armor, super satellites, and levitation technology, largely kept these cutting-edge technologies in-house, providing them at most to the military. Future Chronicle, on the other hand, has truly achieved civilian application, disseminating these cutting-edge technologies to society at large. Countless scientists and researchers have published papers and speeches, citing this as the reason Future Chronicle is considered a deity. Of course, if the black-haired young man heard these remarks, he would surely burst out laughing. Future Chronicle Company, promoting and popularizing technological products for civilian use, is actually just a generation of obsolete technology. The black-haired young man in a dark red windbreaker continued strolling down the street. Next to him, a silver-haired girl, wings fluttering like a dragonfly, followed closely behind. "So, staying in the devouring dimension all day isn't good. You should occasionally come out and see the world, or you'll fall behind." A spiritual thought echoed from the interlayer of his windbreaker. Inside, a glass jar, no bigger than a palm, held a colorful, one-eyed starfish. The starfish's clear, single eye glanced around, its mind emanating from the narrow slit of its windbreaker button, also taking in the surrounding scenery of New York City's pedestrian streets. The black-haired young man smiled calmly. "Didn't Kara's cousin say she'd take you to outer space last time? With her, forget it." The one-eyed starfish spread out its brightly colored tentacles. "Besides, the last time you mentioned was 4 years ago." 4 years, the black-haired young man muttered, Inexplicably, time flies. If I were to count according to real time, I'd be 26 already. In fact, he looked like a college student, and no one would believe him. Although he was at least 1.8 meters tall, with a slender figure, his face was still very young. But for some reason, when the black-haired young man walked the street, he always felt a subtle sense of dissonance with a pedestrian mall, or the outside world. There was a faint air of age and mystery about him. Nian, the one-eyed starfish, suddenly conveyed a spiritual thought. 4 years have passed. It's time for you to pull yourself together. Nian was silent for a moment, then let out more breath and smiled helplessly. Why do so many of you think I've become withdrawn because of what happened back then? Isn't that true? Guan Luo was stunned. Lorna's case is indeed a wound in my heart, but I haven't become negative or withdrawn because of it. Nian looked up at the night sky, observing the twinkling stars, and said calmly, that's because I believe she's still alive and living peacefully somewhere. Guan Luo fell silent. 4 years ago, an incident occurred within the Destiny Alliance, sparked by the birth of Polaris Lorna. For safety reasons, the Destiny Alliance even placed the birthing site within a separate, devouring space. But even with 11 members of the Destiny Alliance present, an accident still occurred. As soon as everyone exited the birthing room, before they could detect anything unusual, the room was enveloped in a burst of white light. When Nian and the others re-entered the room, Polaris Lorna on the bed, along with a dozen or so medical robots controlled by Alice, had vanished. That day, the Destiny Alliance searched for Earth through the devouring space, then searched from Earth's interior to the 9 realms of space, but could find no trace of Polaris Lorna. Guan Luo remembered it clearly. Finally, Nian returned to Super Red mode, broke through the Green Lantern Corps headquarters planet to face the old gods, and set foot on any life-forbidden zone star field at the edge of the universe. However, no trace or clues were found. Polaris Lorna seemed to have disappeared from the devouring dimension and even the entire outside universe out of thin air, along with the Mind Gem necklace and the dimension ring worn by Polaris Lorna. Afterwards, Nian and Wanda also explored this and ultimately ruled out the influence of the Mind Gem or the dimension ring. After all, neither the Mind Gem nor the dimension ring had ever been activated. For more than 4 years, there was no clue in the inner and outer worlds, and Guan Luo felt that hope was slim. After spending more than half a year to investigate the entire outside world, Nian also returned to the devouring dimension and never came out again. I'm not coming out because it's pointless to continue searching outside, Nian said calmly. At the time, I thought it was some powerful being or some mysterious cosmic device Odin spoke of. But even the Super Red mode can't find any clues. That means the Lorna incident wasn't their doing. Otherwise, I would have killed them no matter what. But I believe Lorna is still alive, even if she's not on this world. Nian paused. Guan Luo's eyes widened. Nian, you mean? This world isn't just ours. There are many other, more bizarre multiverses. Nian took a deep breath. In his youth, he and Gwen had successfully reached another parallel universe and returned safely to their original world. Back then, the still-living Ancient One had repeatedly warned him of the complexity and dangers of multiverses. Once lost, it would be difficult to return to your original universe. You suspect Lorna's disappearance is linked to the multiverse. Guan Luo paused, then asked, if that's the case, why didn't you share this conclusion with everyone in the Destiny Alliance? That's the multiverse, Nian said helplessly. Even our own universe has many secrets that remain untold. Let alone the multiverse itself. Even sharing it with others would only increase their worries. Nian never considered himself omnipotent. Although the Destiny Alliance could control Earth, it couldn't cover the entire universe. Furthermore, with countless independent universes in the multiverse, it was 1,000 times more difficult than finding a needle in a haystack. Even Darkseid, who had fought a bloody battle with Super Red mode, was merely a dimensional projection from the multiverse. Of course, I never gave up, Nian said solemnly. No matter what, no matter which world, I will find Lorna one day. You have truly grown up, Guan Luo sighed in his mind. Nian was now more mature and a more capable leader. But Nian, Guan Luo, and Alice were apparently unaware. At this moment, in the parallel world closest to the central streets of New York, the mirror space, a red-haired figure in a vibrant red dress stood quietly. She was at least 1.7 meters tall, her figure graceful and elegant, like an intoxicating crimson, leaning against a glassy barrier of space. Sister, Multiverse. The red-haired woman whispered softly. She took a light step forward, and a portal formed by swirling sparks opened in front of her. Chapter 447 The Encounter Between Phoenix and Destiny. In the suburbs of Washington, a former auto repair shop was converted into a private base, its perimeter crisscrossed with security cameras and high-voltage power lines. The main gate opened automatically, two bright beams of light piercing through. A black motorcycle whizzed into the base and stopped. A young white man removed his helmet, revealing a handsome and resolute face. He dismounted the motorcycle with a blonde girl, also wearing a helmet. Nightwing introduced, "This is our Junior League headquarters." Zayakin gazed at the illuminated building, her doll-like face instinctively filled with fear. "Don't worry, the members of our Junior League headquarters are all good people," Nightwing said. But then, through the still-open main gate, a smaller black motorcycle drove in. A white boy in a gray-black leather jacket rode. He removed his helmet, revealing a pair of black goggles beneath. His youthful face was stern, and though he was only 12 or 13 years old, he exuded a murderous aura. "He's one of our Junior League members, Damian Wayne," Nightwing introduced Zayakin. The white boy glanced at the two of them coldly. "Dick, we're a team of heroes, not a superpowered kindergarten. Also, don't tell anyone my real name." With that, he walked straight into the base. "That's just how he is." "Don't mind it," Nightwing said helplessly, watching him walk away. "I know. He means no harm," Zayakin muttered to himself, then asked curiously, "Mr. Nightwing, is his last name Wayne?" "Yes." Nightwing nodded. "As you might expect, he comes from the Wayne family in Gotham City." "Please don't tell anyone about this." Zayakin agreed immediately, "I will. Everyone has their secrets." Nightwing found the other person more mature than he had imagined. "Come on, I'll introduce you to the other members of our Junior League." Nightwing led Zayakin into the base. A number of vehicles were parked on the first floor. The main hall on the second floor was spacious, lit up, and scattered with figures. Nightwing was walking into the hallway with Zayakin. "Wow, such a cute little girl." A blonde girl excitedly rushed forward, tapping her boots. She was about 16 years old, her well-developed body clad in a red, strapless dress. Though dressed like a noble lady, she wasn't reserved at all, exuding a vibrant energy and unrestrained passion. Each of her hands was clad in a pair of delicate, tight, elbow-reaching gold gloves. The blonde girl squatted down and lifted Zayakin into her arms, rubbing her delicate, fair face against hers, which was still grimy and tender. Nightwing introduced her helplessly. "Her name is Cassie Sandmark. You can also call her by her heroic name, Wonder Girl." Wonder Girl turned and asked the other two girls in the main hall, "Starfire, Raven, look. Isn't she adorable? By Earth standards, she's what's considered a beauty, right?" The girl called Starfire said, rising from the sofa. The woman wore a long-sleeved top and a short uniform skirt, revealing an orange hue. Paired with her unusual crimson curly hair, she resembled a spark burning in the universe. She was about 16, with green-yellow eyes that were fundamentally different from those of humans. Nightwing quickly added, "She's Spark, Corianda, from an alien civilization." "Alien civilization?" Zayakin asked, surprised. "Raven, what do you think?" Wonder Girl looked at the woman still sitting on the sofa. The girl, petite at 1.5 meters tall, wore a tightly concealing black long-sleeved top and a black hooded windbreaker, exuding a dark and mysterious aura. She sat huddled in the corner of the sofa, quietly reading a book, her hood obscuring most of her face, making it impossible to see her features. She continued reading, seemingly oblivious to Wonder Girl's question. "Her name is Raven, and she's very reserved," Nightwing whispered, a fleeting glint of admiration in his eyes. Zayakin's expression was pensive, yet she still gazed at the hooded girl with a touch of trepidation. She was the only one on the field whose mind she couldn't read. "Are there new members? Why don't you introduce them to me?" Just then, a childish voice rang out from the side of the main hall. It was a white boy, no more than 5 years old, with curly brown hair and a childish tracksuit with a Superman logo on the front. His tiny hands were lowering a massive, ton-weight barbell. The barbell's landing caused the second floor to shake slightly. "Hello, my name is Jonathan Kent," the white boy said with a proud, confident air. "I'm the future, the second-generation Superman, born for truth, justice, and a better tomorrow." Nightwing clutched his forehead. "He's Superman's son, one of our alliance's most powerful fighters." After nightfall, Wonder Girl walked down to the main hall on the second floor and said in a low voice, "She's asleep. She must be too tired. She just took a shower and fell asleep on the bed." Luckily, Raven's clothes fit her. Nightwing sighed, "Poor child. These days, the armies of major powers will use any means to pursue extraordinary talents. She's too young. Will she really become one of us?" Starfire asked curiously. "I think you're ignoring me." Little Jonathan Kent raised his hand in protest. Wonder Girl spread her hands and said, "It's fate that we met. I also came to this city to find my relatives, and ended up joining the Junior League without knowing why. Have you found any relatives now?" Starfire's curiosity shifted. Not yet." Wonder Girl scratched her head awkwardly. "All right, everyone," said little Jonathan Kent, making a move to leave. "It's night time. I need to go back to Metropolis, or my dad will beat my ass." Unexpectedly, the hooded girl, Raven, who had been sitting in the corner of the sofa and remained silent, said coldly, "You can't go back for now." "What do you mean?" Everyone in the main hall was stunned. At that moment, Damian Wayne burst out of a room and shouted a warning, "A large number of military personnel are surrounding our headquarters." As soon as he finished speaking, boom! A flaming car suddenly crashed through the second-floor window of the base. Little Jonathan Kent roared, and his small body in sportswear rushed towards the flaming car like a cannonball. Boom! The flaming car exploded with a roar in the second-floor main hall. Immediately, more cars flew in from outside. Late at night, on a deserted street in the outer suburbs of New York, a blonde girl in a white nightgown was fleeing. She'd lost her shoes, leaving her bare, delicate feet and exposed limbs bruised and bruised. Snap! Suddenly, she fell forward, ignoring the pain as she struggled to her feet. Words echoed in her ears, "They're coming for you. Run. We'll hold them off." She bit her lip, tears streaming down her fair face. She didn't understand why she always brought disaster upon others. Her mind-reading abilities revealed the ugliness and darkness of human nature. Outside of the Junior League, few treated themselves with sincerity and kindness. And now, even the Junior League was swept by disaster. Flee, where to? Jean didn't understand. The world was vast, but there was no place for her. She could only keep fleeing. Jean's petite body fell once again onto the snow-covered road, no longer able to rise. A calm, gentle male voice echoed from the front. The girl struggled to lift her head and saw a hand extended toward her. The man leaned against a streetlight, his tall body rimmed with light, warm as the sun against the snowy night. "Do you need help?" the black-haired young man asked. Chapter 448. A New Generation, the Youth League. Late at night, on the streets of New York, the snow had suddenly stopped, and a crescent moon peeked out from beneath the dark clouds in the night sky, its cool, silvery light shrouding the snow-capped city. Zayakin lay on the ground, stunned, staring at the tall, dark-haired young man standing in front of her, crouching slightly. He had a handsome face, dressed in a well-fitting shirt and uniform, topped off by a fine, dark red trench coat that spread out like wings in the chill wind. His youthful face was calm and gentle, his demeanor refined, reminiscent of a noble gentleman, yet conveying a sense of familiarity that was neither distant nor distant. Zayakin was lost in thought. She couldn't read the young man's mind. The moment her telepathic connection reached him, it was blocked by his trench coat. But what surprised her even more was that she felt no resistance to him at all, and even thought he was handsome. Ever since she acquired the ability to read minds, Zayakin had stopped judging people by appearances and instead viewed them through their own minds. She instinctively distanced herself from and feared those whose hearts she couldn't fathom. Kim never actively sought help from others, because she didn't consider herself a child, but an independent person. But now, facing the black-haired young man, Kim's lips moved slightly, and she finally stretched out her small hand, as if reaching for a single ray of light, and timidly responded, "Please, save me. I understand." The black-haired young man smiled faintly and reached out to hold the girl's small hand. Kim cried out in surprise. But then the young man gently tugged, and her body floated up, and he held her in his arms. His dark red woolen windbreaker flapped slightly, half covering her body, which was only clad in a thin nightgown. Kim's face flushed slightly. Her small hands gently grasped the man's uniform, and she said weakly, "It must be very expensive. If I get it dirty and I don't have the money to pay you." "It's okay, I'm quite wealthy." The dark-haired young man smiled and paused. Besides, you're safe now, you can rest for a while. No, I'll pay you back later. Qin's tone was weak but firm. She curled up slightly, her face buried in the uniform. Qin felt her body suddenly warm up. The man had a pleasant scent, and his deep voice was soothing. Could it be an angel? Wait, when did I become so trusting as a child? But if it's him, it seems like being deceived isn't a big deal. Qin felt her telepathy falter, and her tense heart relaxed. Fatigue once again washed over her body and mind. She closed her eyes, her eyelashes fluttering slightly, and soon she was breathing evenly. Alice, the dark-haired young man suddenly spoke. A thumb-sized, silver-haired girl flew out from behind him, gazing at the blonde in his arms. She spoke softly, Jean Grey. Her father's name is John Grey, and her mother's is Aline Grey. Both parents died in a car accident 4 years ago. She was subsequently adopted by a newly built orphanage in New York. 6 months ago, she awakened the ability to read people's minds. The children at the orphanage began to fear and distance themselves from her, and the orphanage wanted to transfer her to the military and other organizations for research. She then left the orphanage and began wandering for 6 months. Recently, she was discovered and pursued by military personnel again, but was later rescued by Nightwing, one of the founders of the Junior League. Alice was originally an artificial intelligence, and even now, despite her physical form, her mind is equivalent to that of an AI, capable of instantly taking over satellites and the internet. Even though Jean Grey's identity information was blocked by the military, she could still easily access it. The most confidential military vaults were like Alice's household drawers, accessible at will. Junior League. Nian was surprised. Alice explained softly, it's a new generation of hero organization that emerged this year, closely related to the former Justice League. Its headquarters is in Washington. There's also a new Young Avengers team in New York. So that's how it is, Nian thought thoughtfully. This girl is extraordinary, Guanluo suddenly spoke with his mind. Although I can't confirm it yet, I'm certain her abilities go beyond mere mind reading. Nian nodded. He used his emotional control, but it only slightly eased Jean's tension. He couldn't completely take control. Beneath her basic ability to read minds, there lay a far greater power. This was probably why the military wanted her. Interesting, Nian thought for a moment, but didn't care, simply finding it amusing. He said softly, Alice, bandage your wounds first. Yes, master, Alice replied respectfully. At this time, in outer Washington, D.C., at the Junior League headquarters, a battle between heroes and villains unfolded here, a battle of the extraordinary. A silver-haired gentleman in a suit and tie stood outside the base, his eyes cold. With a flick of his right hand, an invisible whirlwind emanated from his palm. The whirlwind grew larger as it spun, rapidly forming a small tornado that swept a parked car high into the air. Next to him stood another white youth dressed in a less than mainstream style. He toyed with a steel lighter. With a snap, a flame ignited from the lighter. With a flick of his hand, the flame erupted into a ball of flame, landing on the car lifted by the tornado and igniting. The silver-haired gentleman waved his hand, and the tornado formed by the whirlwind swept the flaming car towards the headquarters, which had already been reduced to a sea of fire. Bang! A small figure, a 5-year-old boy, rushed out of the base window and kicked the flaming car back. Meanwhile, flames spread throughout the base. Nightwing Dick and Damian Wayne, each wearing a dark, tight-fitting uniform with a winged bat pattern on their chests, stood side by side, their faces grave as they watched the man leaning against the wall in the corridor's corner. Nightwing Dick's expression was grim. The military is colluding with your Hellfire Club. I've heard about it before. That Batman, Bruce Wayne, has gone behind the scenes, training generations of Robin as his successor. I want to test the worth of you so-called new generation heroes, the man said gravely, stepping out of the corridor's shadows and appearing in the glow of the flames. His tall figure, clad in a full suit of crimson armor, carried twin katanas and a custom-made pistol, exuding a cold, almost tangible murderous aura. You old guys, it's time to leave the stage of the new era. Damian Wayne declared, bat dagger in hand, his face cold and arrogant. Be careful, this man is very dangerous. Nightwing, however, was not optimistic about this and said solemnly to Damian Wayne. The middle-aged man reached out and removed the 2 samurai swords from his back. He said to the shadowy corner of the corridor behind him, you go chase the target, I'll play with these 2. No problem. Another hoarse voice sounded in the shadows, and a ferocious, Demonic tail swung, and the whole body transformed into an eerie red light and disappeared. Chapter 449, Once a Young Man, the King. Go. The silver-haired gentleman waved his hand, and a torrent of water formed into a miniature tornado, swirling with sand, gravel, frost, and snow. It violently swept toward the 5-year-old boy. The boy rolled up his sleeves and rushed forward, forcing himself against the tornado for a moment before slamming heavily into the wall. The wall collapsed. Unharmed, the 5-year-old boy scrambled to his feet, angrily saying, "Still can't fly. What a hassle." The silver-haired gentleman frowned. Just then, the communicator chimed. The silver-haired gentleman hurriedly pulled his communicator from his pocket and answered. A commanding yet languid female voice echoed through the communicator, "Riptide, what's the situation?" "King," the silver-haired gentleman known as Riptide replied respectfully. "Everything is under control. It's just that the opposing team possesses a superhero with teleportation abilities, and they've teleported the target to New York City." He quickly added, "However, the Red Devil Azazel has memorized her presence and is pursuing her using teleportation." "Where's Deathstroke?" the woman behind the scenes asked. Riptide replied somewhat helplessly, "You know, there are 2 generations of Robin in the Junior League, and one is Batman's son." "I see." The woman behind the scenes was clearly well versed in the grievances between Deathstroke and the Wayne family. As if hearing the sounds of fierce battle from the scene, the woman behind the scenes asked, "Any other trouble?" "Superman's son, he's here too." Riptide breathed a sigh of relief. Even if the opponent didn't possess Superman's powers, Kryptonian blood was still not something they could easily deal with. The woman behind the scenes was silent for a moment, then said, "I'll send number 13. Number 13. Jilly responded with barely concealed fear. "Do we really need him?" the woman behind the scenes said coldly. "This time, we can't afford to lose our target. With her, our Hellfire Club will be transformed." Jilly couldn't help but ask, "Is this target's potential as great as number 13's?" The woman behind the scenes replied, "Almost." Jilly gasped. He finally understood why even the military was so eager to cooperate with them, to achieve their goal together. Meanwhile, in the main hall on the 2nd floor of the base, a fire was blazing. A panther-like claw covered in a metal gauntlet tore through the air and slashed towards them. Wonder Girl cried out softly, crossing her arms to block the blow. Even then, the panther's claw still sent her flying over 10 meters, smashing the sofa and table to pieces. Not far away, the Junior League member Spark raised her hands, and a brilliant orange flame emanated from her hands, rushing towards the panther-like figure like a cannonball. The opponent stood still without dodging. A leopard's tail swift as lightning whipped behind him, shattering the orange flames into an explosion. Starfire's orange face paled slightly. Wonder Girl also climbed back up from the ground, gazing solemnly at the formidable foe before her. It was a female creature transformed into a leopard, complete with leopard ears and a leopard tail. She stood on 2 legs, her leopard-like feet slightly raised. Her curvaceous, human-like form was mostly naked, with silver metallic clothing covering her key areas. Her mature, voluptuous figure blended with her ferocious leopard form, imbued with a breathtaking, savage allure. Starfire, even as an alien, felt a chill as if being watched by a predator. At this moment, she was watched by those narrow, luminous green eyes. Still sitting quietly on a sofa in the main hall, the hooded girl, still clutching a book, put down her copy of How to Conquer a Man and whispered, "I can help." "Raven, don't." Starfire said hurriedly, "Your abilities are too unstable." Wonder Girl clenched her golden-gloved fists and said, "Let us 2 do it first. If you can't hold on any longer, you can do it later." "Okay," the hooded girl replied, returning to her book, oblivious to the battlefield and the sea of fire. Downstairs, on another battlefield, Nightwing Dick was kicked hard and sent flying. Damian Wayne quickly stepped forward, each hand holding a sharp bat dagger, its gleaming cold in the flames and darkness. Deathstroke swung his katana in his right hand, his hand and blade practically fading into shadow. Less than 10 seconds later, Damian Wayne's body stiffened as a bat dagger was sent flying. His other dagger collided with a katana, sending sparks flying, but he was unable to dislodge the powerful katana. He could only watch helplessly as the katana grazed the dagger and continued to stab into his chest. In the nick of time, a bat claw grabbed Damian Wayne's lower back and pulled him back, narrowly avoiding the katana's thrust. "Are you okay?" Nightwing retracted the bat claw and steadied Damian. No. Damien shook his head and pulled a new bat dagger from his waist, his hands trembling slightly as he gripped it. Nightwing sighed softly. Facing such a powerful foe and such an extraordinary battle, Damian Wayne's still immature body was far too much for him. Deathstroke said, "You two are so poor. Is this the successor Batman has groomed?" Upon hearing this, Nightwing and Damian Wayne, the second-generation Robin, both looked grim. Is this the so-called new generation? Deathstroke shook his head. It's so different from the guy I met 8 years ago. Who are you talking about? Nightwing frowned. I don't know who he was, but he wasn't much older than you back then. Deathstroke smiled nostalgically. He also said he wanted me to be his bodyguard. Deathstroke, as a bodyguard? Nightwing and Damian Wayne were puzzled. The mere sight of Deathstroke frightened them. Boys, your generation has been too comfortable. The only people you face now are superhuman criminals. Have you faced any supernatural wars, alien invasions, or dimensional collapse in the past 5 years? Deathstroke sneered. Only old men like them could understand the horror of the old era 5 years ago, and the mighty force that divided it in two. Once upon a time, there was a man who stood above that era, becoming the sole god. In New York City, 1,000 meters above. The target's presence is here. A red figure emerged, accompanied by a strange glow of fire. It was a demonic man, his skin a dark crimson, dressed in a refined gentleman's uniform, and a fiery red demonic tail emanated from his back. He gazed down at the night sky of New York City, his figure flickering before disappearing once more in the flames. Chapter 450 Mysterious Young Man, Superhuman Genes? Like a red devil wandering through the cracks of space, Red Devil Azazel flashed and appeared in a flash within a 5-star New York hotel. In the magnificent first-floor lobby, waiters and guests were visibly startled by the eerie appearance of Azazel, accompanied by a blood-red glow. When they finally saw his face, their faces paled even more, and many waiters dropped their plates with a clatter. Who is he? His skin is red, and he has a tail, a monster. Accustomed to the horrified glances of others, Red Devil Azazel's face remained stern, his ferocious red tail swaying from side to side. He rolled up his sleeves and spoke hoarsely, "None of your business, get out of here." Screams and cries of terror echoed throughout the lobby, the hall in chaos, and many people fled in panic for the hotel's entrance. In less than 10 seconds, the vast, luxurious first-floor lobby was reduced to a few waiters hiding under the reception desk and a black-haired young man and a blonde girl, who remained on the sofas in the lounge area. The blonde girl lay curled up on her side on the sofa, covered in a dark red windbreaker. Her frail face turned toward the inside of the sofa, still breathing evenly in deep sleep. Red Devil Azazel instantly confirmed she was his target. The special imprint he'd left on her through the air allowed him to teleport her anywhere through his aura. It was practically impossible to escape once targeted by the Red Devil. Hiding in a police station, a military base, or even a high-security prison was useless. Red Devil Azazel's eyes flickered as he noticed a very young, dark-haired man sitting next to the girl. The unidentified man, dressed in a well-fitting, expensive, handmade shirt and uniform, leaned back against the soft backrest of the sofa, his hands casually resting on it. He closed his eyes, seemingly oblivious to what was happening in the main hall. Or perhaps, unconcerned? "No matter who you are, she's a target of our Hellfire Club," Red Devil Azazel said hoarsely. The mysterious young man didn't react, not even raising an eyelid. Red Devil Azazel's eyes glared. He had a temper, but considering the importance of tonight's target, he set his sights on the blonde. Bringing the target back was paramount. With a flash of crimson fire, Red Devil Azazel vanished from his position. The next moment, he had leaped over 20 meters and appeared out of thin air near the sofa. Got it. Red Devil Azazel had been observing the mysterious young man. Noticing the young man's lack of reaction, he unhesitatingly extended his right hand towards the blonde. With a swish, Red Devil Azazel's eyes widened in shock. Suddenly, a corner of the dark red windbreaker covering the girl rose up on its own accord, barely blocking his red right hand. What kind of windbreaker was that? Intelligent? Before Red Devil Azazel could react, a tiny silver light caught his eye. The thumb-sized, silver-haired figure instantly reverted to its youthful form. The silver-haired girl flew from the sofa, her black and white maid dress flowing freely. With lightning-fast speed, her perfectly slender silver-plated hand reached forward to seize Red Devil Azazel's throat. Huh? Red Devil Azazel was startled and confused. He could not feel the warmth of a living being from that hand. Instead, an immense, inhuman force emanated from it. Bang! Red Devil Azazel was sent flying backwards, his back slamming hard against the floor. The pressure of the silver-haired girl's grip on his throat plowed a path over 10 meters long into the floor. The floor cracked, dust flew. Trampling. Only when they reached the wall of the main hall did the silver-haired girl release her grip, landing lightly from the air. By then, Red Devil Azazel had lost consciousness. He foamed at the mouth, his eyes rolled back as he collapsed to the ground, his body twitching in a state of disarray. Master, it's resolved. The cold, white glint in the silver-haired girl's eyes faded. She brushed the dust off her now white hands, turned around, and spoke with a sweet, graceful demeanor. The mysterious young man opened his eyes, looked at the red devil lying on the ground in front of him, shrugged, and said, I gave them a chance. It would be a shame if I couldn't catch one. Alice glanced at the red devil on the ground. He's the Red Devil, also known as Azazel, a member of the Hellfire Club. Due to genetic mutation, he has the ability to teleport. Hellfire Club. Nian raised a brow. Alice replied, Master. The predecessor of the Hellfire Club was the Doom League. The Doom League. Nian listened, and memories of the past were brought back. 8 years had passed, so it was certainly a long time. The Doom League was founded by Lex Luthor, and the Great Era Incident was the Doom League's doing. Of course, the real mastermind behind the Doom League was the alien Blackjack, who was later killed by Nian's super body mode. Since Lex Luthor's death, the League of Doom should have disbanded long ago. Surprisingly, it's been rebuilt as the Hellfire Club, collaborating with both the white and black factions and the military. Who's in charge of the Hellfire Club now? Nian finally showed some interest. Alice slowly replied, Emma Grace Frost. Former White Queen, now the King of Black and White. Meanwhile, at the Junior League headquarters, a raging fire rose, scorching the sky red. Outside the building, Torrent and the non-mainstream youth continuously unleashed whirlwinds and flames to block the son of Superman's approach. The whirlwinds and flames formed dragons of fire, repeatedly blasting 5-year-old Jonathan Kent away. But little Jonathan Kent, like an invincible cockroach, stood up again and again, charging forward. This is Kryptonian blood. Torrent and the non-mainstream youth paled. Their physical strength was nearly exhausted, but they dared not let little Jonathan get close, constantly using their powers to suppress him from a distance. Their physical strength was that of an average human. Facing Superman's son, Jonathan Jr., they would be defeated in a single round in close combat. You two villains can't defeat the truth. Jonathan Jr. ignored the flames and charged forward against the hurricane, clenching his fists as he stared at the two. Just then, tread. A white young man in a black jacket descended from the sky in front of Riptide, crushing the ground to dust. Are you? Number 13. Riptide's eyes widened, a flicker of fear instinctively flashing before a sigh of relief. He knew their arrival meant the end of everything. I'm not number 13, I'm Connor Kent, the black-clad young man replied coldly. Shut up. You bastard. You can't have my last name. Upon seeing the other man, Jonathan Kent's eyes flashed red with anger. The other man was merely an artificial being who had stolen his father's genes. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.